Sure.
So I've been playing Feral Druid.
Yeah, I saw that. How's that working out for you?
Bro. Once again, Feral Druid is the underrated leader of the pack. They're one of the few classes I've noticed so far that I've played, and I've bounced around quite a bit, that don't have a target cap on their spells anymore. At least not Feral. Boomkin does, right? You got like what, 5 on your Starfire?
No. Well, that's the complaint, right? Within the DPS community on the forums is that here, I'm gonna mute this. Is that there is no cap on balance. Starfall is just insane.
Oh yeah, Starfall doesn't have a cap at all.
So all other ranged DPS have caps while Boomkin don't. That's why they're topping the charts, or so says all the other casters.
But they're topping the chart on like leaf fights. That has nothing to do with it. It's fucking Starfire, man.
Yeah.
And multi-dotting with Moonfire.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been playing my Druid as much. I've been playing my Hunter a lot more. I don't know if I muted you or...
No, I can hear you.
Okay.
Trying to make sure I spell check.
But yeah, I'm still playing Beastmaster spec, and I think they buffed it. I'm not sure, but I've been doing like crazy damage at raids.
Yeah, I saw that. Beastmaster, you know, if you have the right, I think it's the right legendary. Did you end up getting a legendary? Because I saw there's this Beastmastery Hunter in the raid the other day that just beat the shit out of me in DPS, and I don't remember what legendary they had. I wrote it down somewhere, but I was doing like 6.2k.
Well, I was running. So me and Jeffrey were looking at it, and they're from top end on the top end specs. There's only like 600 or 700 DPS difference, but I'm using the Bestial Wrath increase critical strike damage by pets for single target. Then I'm using the Tar Trap / Flare on the on AoE fights. So I'm switching between legendary depending on what the fight is.
Oh, see, I built Surging Shots, the rapid fire one for marksman.
Right.
And then I built the Serpent Stalker one, the marksman one that we dragged on is actually still, you multi-dot with it in like Huntsman, for example, that thing is broken.
Right.
Council, but basically that Serpent Sting does just a massive amount of damage. I'm excited to talk about this stuff today. Thinking a lot about it. Have you actually, we'll save that for the show.
What's that?
I can't tell you because we're going to save it for the show.
Okay.
Morning, Iron Fletcher.
Good morning, Iron Fletcher.
All right.
Should
I'll get a quick sound check on the stream and we're good to go.
Right on.
I should what?
Oh no, I was sorry, my son is bouncing around here. Sorry, my son is. We bought him new shoes yesterday, and so he climbs out of bed and puts. We bought him new.
I've been that excited to wear my new clothes before. Put on the kicks. Hey, Dragon Slayer, that's a good suggestion. I have played one game of Spellbreak with the Ice Bow. And I shit you not, the one game that I played, I won. I bet you I have a 100% win rate. I should check that out after the stream. I'll let you know. Good morning. Have you played that yet, Richard? Spellbreak?
No, no, not at all. I've my last quarter started up, so I haven't even really been playing. Once I get into school, my brain's kind of there. It's like I only have the brain power to deal with that thing.
I get that, man. For me, it's also been one of those weeks where it went by like 3 times faster than you wanted it to, and you got like a third of what you wanted to get done.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hey, you're a fixture. Your light fixture above your head looks like a boob in the hallway.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of does. Nothing.
He's like, "What you say to me, motherfucker?"
I'm going to save my wife because she'll go. Why did you just close the door?
Think of the head, bro.
Yeah, she doesn't like her picture taken when she's there.
All right.
Happy wife, happy life.
What a cute fucking kid. Holy shit. The dog's looking at me like he wants some hash browns. Well, I can't give you hash browns. This is the corner, and this is the best part of the hash brown. What? How about this? I'll take a little nibble. You can have the rest. Oh boy. Alright, now go lay down. If I've sated your endless hunger, you filthy beast. Alright, you ready to get going?
Let's do this, buddy.
Ooh, I'm gonna pause this music. I'm gonna jump on here and say hello. That's the wrong one. Hey guys. That's still the wrong one. Hey guys. Nope. Wow, holy shit. Hard. Morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'd like to introduce my good buddy Richard, aka Dr. Claw. Today, we're gonna be talking about some real fun, juicy, mind-boggling topics. I'm really, really fucking excited for it. Existence and the essence of our being. I remember you said, "Hey man, I want to be on your show," and I got an idea of what I want to talk about. And I said, the very first thing I said to you was, "Hold on, I got to write this down." And you kind of just went off on all these topics about things you kind of wanted to talk about. And you know, the notes here are pretty hilarious after the fact. I got like hidden messages and things. And then as existence and basically essence relates to Donald Glover and Childish Gambino, like how they are two different things, and 3005 and the symbolism in it. Now, this is where it gets confusing. It says Ferris wheel, 3 rotations. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yeah.
Oh, good, because it doesn't for me. And then it says teddy bear. Does that ring a bell in the music video? I think.
Okay. In the music video.
All right, and then we got an essence supersedes existence, and then talking about how our essence is our greater purpose. And then the 1900s something was debunked. It just says 1900s debunked. So yeah, you kind of just hit me with one of those beautiful like thought trains. I wrote it down, and I figured we would gab about it. Well, and, you know, like we talked about, I like to have my friends on here, and you and I always go on these long, deep, fucking off the dive board talks late into the night. So, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. I like your headset. Is that the one that you and Jeffrey were talking about with the removable battery?
No, I think that's the one that he has.
Oh, I thought you all had the same headset.
Alicia bought me these for Christmas last year.
Fancy. So existence, essence. I want to let's dive into the first one here. You said essence supersedes existence.
Well, I think that it's important to kind of establish what they are, right? Because it's there's like a fundamental meaning and then a bigger life kind of meaning, right? So like in essence is what a thing is, right? So like you could take a star, right? A star is a star. That's its essence. a monkey, a giraffe, a human, right? Like at its core, in the bigger vague scope of what essence is, that's what it is, right? And existence is that it is, right? That the fact that it exists.
Okay.
So it was believed in Plato's form, Aristotle's like uh, the human condition, essence superseded existence, right? That for something to exist, it had to have an essence before that,
Okay.
right? And that idea amongst philosophers spans hundreds of years, right?
Okay.
Like the idea of like something was predetermined before it existed, right? But there was a flaw in that, because within that container of essence was this predetermined nature of who a person was going to be, right?
Or what a
Because
thing was gonna do, or whatever.
right,
Okay.
right, because like a giraffe is going to do giraffe things.
Right. Okay. They, like wrap their neck around things and crush them to death like a python. Do you think
Right.
can giraffes actually do that? Can they do like a 360 with their neck?
I don't think so. I've never seen that happen.
I need to watch more giraffe things. Anyway, but no, I get what you're saying. So then now I have on here that it's that you said that was debunked in the 1900s
Well, it's not really a topic that needs to be de- as much debunked as
because it's
just,
more like philosophical.
right. So the idea
So
is
like
was kind
something
of,
more popular took hold then.
well, so you have to take in the fact that um essence pre-existing existence also goes hand in hand with the idea that religion is factual, right? Not to
Mm,
insult people that
that's
might be
true.
religious, but um, that if God is real, right, then your essence has to be real, right? Because God predetermines your life for you, and this is what it's believed, from you know the birth of intellectualism in men, right?
Okay.
Um,
Versus
and it
utility.
right. So into the early parts or later parts of the 1800s, early part of the 1900s, these philosophers were born that kind of bucked the idea of religion. I mean, there
Just
were
generally speaking,
philosophers,
like
right,
in terms of in order to exist, you must have a purpose. That was kind of like unpopularized. You're saying.
right,
Okay.
right. So there were two main philosophers that were born in the early part of the 1900s. One, his name was Jean-Paul Sartre.
Okay.
Yeah, Sartre, or I don't know exactly how you pronounce it. I'm still waking up. My brain hurts, but
I'm
um,
gonna just I'm gonna put it phonetically. I don't know. That's not how the French work, and I assume it's French because Jean Paul.
yeah, yeah.
But
So his whole belief is that essence is human nature, right? Human nature cannot
okay,
supersede existence,
okay. Oh,
right?
I
That
see what you mean. So like we have a so basically, he's saying that we have like a set parameter in which we can operate, and we will never operate outside of that parameter.
right.
Okay.
That there's sorry, my brain just went blank. But he had this whole concept, and I'm kind of bewildered just because I have a hard time with the fact that humans believed in one way for so long and didn't really question it. And it took Jean Paul coming along and putting this out there as,
Like an
oh, hey,
alternative.
right,
Okay.
like, um it's a lot of his take from it though was from an atheistic standpoint, right?
Oh,
Like,
okay. So so it's basically almost a stark contrast to what already was. Like
right.
at one, we have to ask ourselves if the need for external validation and like human recognition, especially because it really kicked up around that time, I would say was at least at a high at that time, is really going to drive forward the um, goal of being that much more different than what the status quo was. So I wonder if that had anything to do with blending.
Well, his atheism wasn't born out of like some kind of nonsensical like, oh well, the word can't be this or whatever, right? His atheism was born out of his belief or his study into essence versus existence, right?
Okay.
Like I had a thing up here. It says the same thing happens if we consider God as creator of the universe. If the concept of man is the mind of God, man becomes an ashtray, that is to say, an object, not a subject. That's why for Jean Paul, God cannot exist. God cannot exist because it would ruin the human life. Because the existence would mean that man has an essence, so it is not free nor responsible for its actions.
Okay. Well, but I mean, but in that many religions, I would even say most. Hold on, plane. Come on, man, put the fucking throttle on it. Good. Okay, but there it does say that men have a destiny. Men, as in humankind, have a destiny, and also, but also operate within free will. So doesn't like his opposition already address that argument?
But that's if so we this is where it moves from a broad essence turns from a broad term statement to a short term statement,
Can
right?
we see if there's a Google
Because,
definition for it?
well, I mean, we can, right? But so so essence in the more personal thing is it describes who you are, who you're going to be, right? So if you're born with an essence, right? If your essence is as a shoemaker and you are born with that essence, that predetermines your life, right?
And he's saying that this is how much of the world operated up until roughly the 90s. Specifically, I mean, including and even sometimes specifically religious
Right.
populations. Okay.
Or how people believed.
Okay. Oh, well, so
So
Google says the intrinsic nature or indispensable quality of something, especially something abstract, that determines its character. In philosophy, it says a property or group of properties of something without which it would not exist or be what it is, like you were saying.
right.
Okay. Um,
So
go ahead.
so the idea, especially by John Paul and later philosophers, is that um, nothing predetermines who you're going to be in your life, right?
Okay.
So Friedrich Nietzsche, right? And again, this is tying human nature back to essence, right? He went on as stating that outside of because he was a religious person, um,
Remember how to spell
but
that too. Check this.
Frederick is with a ch, right? And then
CH.
Nietzsche is Nitche.
Boom! Pow!
But he believed that human nature or our essence is what we are before we make something of ourselves, right? So he thought that essence was more malleable, but I with his definition you could say, well, then you had essence before existence, but
Well,
essence can essence can be molded, right? I mean, and I think that he believed that because he was a religious person, that
oh, I
he didn't
see.
want
Well,
to take.
I see. That does bounce back to. Sorry to interrupt, but that does bounce back to what you were saying in terms of um, like it being a predetermined set of qualities. I guess how broad or narrow that predetermined set of qualities is, uh, in in reference to the essence. I think that that's like subjective. Like, so you're
Right.
saying that he's saying that basically human nature, or basically the essence of a human, boils down to a predetermined set of qualities that a human could exhibit or might exhibit, and it is up to the human to either embrace or shy away from those qualities. Like, so each person forges their own path. They're going through life, maybe like a character select screen in a video game, right? Like, you get to choose which option you want on your character, and then you go through the
Right.
game, and you can change the way your gear looks or get a haircut later or whatever. But there's still, like, there's some things, like for WoW, for example, like we were talking about earlier, you can choose your race and your class, and I mean, without paying a little bit of money, you can't change your race and you can't change your class. You gotta like stick to what you chose.
Right.
Um, well, that's interesting. That's really interesting that there was already so much like variety in conversation in regards to just purely talking about trying to define the essence, specifically of humans. It sounds like, right? Or were they talking about everything?
No, they were talking about humans specifically, right? But I mean, because according to, again, and this is going back to John Paul, that outside of religion, man is the only thing that exists on this planet where existence precedes essence, right? And that leads into a different. I'll go there in a bit, but that leads into a whole quagmire of other things. But like, trees existence is its essence is it makes another tree, right? Its existence is the same every single time. Um, Sharks, giraffes, rocks, crystals, stars,
Well, we
etc.
assume, isn't that the whole point of this? Is that we assume just based on our observation as humans that that tends to be the case. Like,
Well,
can
yeah.
we acknowledge that there probably might be some sort of like thought process that rocks have that we're just not privy to? Like, is an essence directly tied to life?
No, no. Well, no, I don't think it is that. And to say this it's why it's called theory, right?
Sure.
Scientific theory, right? Because if it was something that we knew for 100%, it would be fact, right? And then it would never change, right? Like, this is a fact, and this is not. Uh, we can't
Well,
debate
and we
this.
even learned that those things, scientific laws. I mean, there have been examples of laws that were laws for a really, really, really long time until some whippersnapper's like, right? Am I wrong? Or, I mean, I
Yeah.
get that laws need to be laws because, at least as science is concerned, like it is, it
Well,
is. Did that happen
well,
to Isaac Newton?
yeah. I think that where it started versus where we are now, right? Especially going into the 1900s. So, in olden days, so if your father was, say, a blacksmith, right, his son would become a blacksmith, or his daughter would
Sure,
become a
sure.
blacksmith.
Well, and
Their
we
kids.
even see that now these days with like home family-run businesses, right?
Well, right, but back then it was more so like, a thing.
Class-based.
Right,
Okay.
right. So as humans, we went through time and we found, like, hey, just because my father's a blacksmith doesn't mean that I want to be a blacksmith. Maybe I want to be, you know, maybe I want to work in a brothel or something to that effect, right?
Okay.
So existence. The question of, I mean, it's the same question of which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? So the question of which came first, the essence or the existence came first. And it's a good conversation to have, right? Because, if you believe essence comes before existence, then you're like, okay, well, I'm not gonna take responsibility for anything that happens in my life, right?
Well,
Because
theoretically, right? Personal
right.
accountability is something that each person has to strive for. But like, I see what you're saying. Well, and we often see that a lot of times, that sort of lack of accountability in a lot of religious areas, extremism, for example, or extremist terrorists of any religion. Like they're saying, this is the way my God wants it to be because my God said you have. Like they do this horrific thing or things in the name of something else, and that basically is what that is, right? Is a way to avoid accountability for your actions. I mean, maybe indirectly. I do believe that people who say that stuff like believe that stuff, but that doesn't make um as to the outside. So okay, so I see what you're saying. So they're saying that like a way to say that your essence exists, and it basically is predetermined. Your essence comes before your existence. They're saying that basically it doesn't matter what you do, you're gonna follow this predetermined path, like fate, destiny. Is destiny a good example of what you're saying?
I because I have a hard time tying it to that just because of there's so many different philosophy types out there, and I don't really believe in things like coincidences. I don't know if you've ever read any James Redfield, but he wrote a book called The Celestine Prophecy, which is it's a fiction book, but he talks about how it's loosely based off of the idea of laws of attraction, and one of the things in
Interesting.
laws of attraction is that coincidence isn't a thing, right? That there is no such thing as coincidence. That everything is fated, right? So even if what you meet somebody for isn't shown, immediately, there is a point eventually to the reason why you met somebody else, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
like maybe me and you met each other 10 years ago so that I could do this show today, right? Like
Sure. Well, I
there's
imagine it's going to go a lot longer than that, right? Like
well, we're right,
we'll
but
probably hit a. But I see what you're saying. So the Wikipedia definition of the law of attraction is basically it says that the belief that positive or negative thoughts bring positive or negative experiences in a person's life, and obviously that's just a really broad encapsulation. But to use like an example of the law of attraction, just to kind of expound on what you're saying, is you're worried every day about getting, say for instance, you're worried every single day about driving down the road your tire might pop. The law of attraction theorizes that the more you think about that, the more likely it is to happen, or the more you focus on any sort of outcome that you want, or specifically like negative thoughts, make more negative things likely to happen. And I do remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, but wasn't there like a really well known kind of offshoot of that says just like positive or negative has to be a broad encapsulation, like it has to be a broad way to interpret these, because when you think negative things happen, but not necessarily as specific as I mentioned before. Like with the tire, it could be you could be worried about your tire, and it could be like making a really negative, I guess to use a buzzword, vibe. And then maybe something else negative happens, like you get pulled over for having your tail light out or something. Is that kind of was that the same thing as what you were talking about when it regards to the law of attraction?
well, well, so it's not even to that effect, right? So the basic premise of laws of attraction is as you bad you put out, bad you get in. Good you put out, good you get in. And that's the easiest layman terms to put at it. But so say you apply for a job, right? And it doesn't even have to be in a negative connotation. If you say, well, so and so might be better qualified, right? The negative thoughts
Of
that
just
you
being like
have.
self-deprecating in this case.
Right,
Okay.
right. So if you go into that job interview, and if you don't even give thought to your misqualifications or somebody being better qualified, if you go in and you say to yourself, I'm going to get this job, right? And that's the positive mindset, right? I'm going to win. And people think it's very kind of egocentric to be like, I'm the best at this, right? Maybe you're not the best at it, but in your mindset you are.
You feel like
And
it.
right. So by definition in laws of attraction, because you think that way, you will be, right? You'll get like on your hunter. I'll just use your hunter for example. If you say, I'm a badass hunter, I'm gonna do high DPS, you're gonna do it. You're not gonna think to yourself, well, this guy's a better hunter. This guy's gonna out DPS me, because once you start doing that, he will. You'll lose, right? And then you'll be, you'll have disappointment, right?
Okay.
So
So do you think that this is at all tied to like quantum observation at all? So because I would say that it's not quite as I would say that it's not quite as if this, then this, at least as far as I understand the laws of attraction. I would say the law of attraction more says if you recognize the possibility of this thing existing or happening, then this thing could exist or happen. Um,
No, exactly,
and
exactly. No,
so
you got it.
Okay, okay. So like well, and that really does that lends a bit more power to the theory that the a religion or God specifically are only as powerful as people believe that they are. Or like for instance Tinkerbell in the Peter Pan stories, that she could only fly as long as people believed in her, right?
Right.
So we actually have examples of what you're talking about just all over the place, left to right, left to right, just examples everywhere about how that has become kind of it's become a pretty popular what will be the word be, like, philosophy.
Right.
Okay. Well, and I don't know if you're on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of the folks on Witch Talk are talking about this kind of stuff, right? But they're talking about it specifically as it pertains to a lot of the astrological stuff going on and more witchy things. But I think that the premise is the same. So I think I don't know. I my life is inundated with examples of the laws of attraction. So let me ask you this: have you put serious effort toward that philosophy, and if so, how has it turned out for you?
Which philosophy?
The law of attraction or new
Well,
thought.
I I kind of live my life by it, man.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
yes is the answer to that one. So, but
Yeah.
and clearly, if you hadn't noticed the difference, and this is an assumption that I'm asking for clarification, if you hadn't noticed the difference, you probably wouldn't keep living your life that way.
Well, right. I don't. I wouldn't adhere to the rules or my hodgepodge of things if it wasn't working out for me. But
So
but
give us an example, if you would.
it, well, it's a
What
lot
what
of
what like really pivoted, kind of
well,
adopting that as a lifestyle.
again, I read James Redfield's book,
Okay.
The Celestine Prophecy, back in 1994, right? And it opened my eyes to a lot of different things, and I started looking into it. And
Celestine, what?
the Celestine Prophecy,
Okay.
it's
Start
written
looking
by,
into it.
and it's just a really easy way of thinking and believing. And what, like I said, while the book itself is fictional, the premise behind it isn't. I mean, it's like The Secret, right? The Secret was written based off of the laws of attraction, and while the book The Secret is kind of newer, the whole premise behind it is much older.
Okay. Okay, I see what
Um, and in that, because I believe the way I believe, right, and the ways of the universe, um, things have always just kind of worked out for me because I have believed that they will, and I don't doubt. Right. I don't doubt that things won't work out. And things have always worked out. I mean, you've known me for a long time. Things like, you know, um, moving or finding houses or going through divorces or finding new partners or, you know, everything always just works out because I believe it will.
Sure, I get that. Well, and that's been advice. I've come to you as a person looking for advice too. Like you said, we've known each other for a time, and I mean, and that has been your advice more often than not. Is, hey, like, yeah, this sucks, but it will work out because that's just the way it is. So, like, that also comes through in a lot of the ways that you communicate, at least with the people that we communicate with at the same time, or the way that I see you communicate, like as a third party or whatever. So that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So, do you, when you think about how you want something to be or how you want something to go, specifically in this case, we'll say, like, if you're going through a hard time, um, would you say that there is a bridge between the way that some folks, specifically you in this case, view the law of attraction and how they implement it in their life. Would you see any parallels between that and how religious people live their lives? Like, for instance, I'm going to leave it in the hands of God. It'll all work out. God has, my best interests in heart, or, everything happens for a reason. I feel like there are some parallels there.
Well, I mean, there are parallels, right? And I don't want to insult any religious people that might be listening or watching us, but I mean, religious people, especially those devout religious people, they believe wholeheartedly that God is going to provide for them, right? And so the universe doesn't care what you call it, right? If you can call it God, you can call it Allah, you can call it the Messiah, Jesus. It doesn't. You can call it Santa Claus for all
It's
it
more of
cares.
just like, as long as you have a way to will things, like Torgoth said in chat, thought equals manifestation. So
Right.
you're saying it doesn't matter if you accredit it to yourself, and the actions that you're doing, or you credit it to an otherworldly being, as long as you are willing things that you want to happen. So that really does lend credit to use some buzzwords here, the power of prayer. Then theoretically,
Well,
right?
right. But prayer can exist with or without a divine being, right?
Right. Well, and then, but so are we saying that is that basically the essence of prayer, would be the attempt to will something into existence?
Mm, I don't think it is, because prayer is asking, right? I don't ask.
You don't. Well, okay. So your prayer is a little bit different. You're saying, oh, okay. So you're saying specifically in reference to theological folks. And man, if people are offended about the stuff that we're talking about, they're probably not watching the right talk show, right? And if so, if somebody is offended by something we say, they have the opportunity and the platform, I made sure of it, to get into the chat box and tell us. And if we can come to a mutual agreement, or we'll figure it the fuck out, basically. And if we come to an irreconcilable difference, the good news is there are 3.1 million other content creators you can go be watching right now. So, yeah, say what you want to say, man. And if we offend somebody, we will cross that bridge when we'll figure it out. Well, and so you're saying that prayer for you is more of like it's more of demands that you make from the universe, versus whereas prayer for a religious person is somebody asking someone else who's in control for something, or forgiveness for something that they did, for example.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it's prayer is like saying, "Hey, like I really need this. Can you please make this happen?" Right? But if you're asking a question you already don't believe, right? If you don't believe, then it's not going to happen, right?
Right.
Like you need to believe in your heart, like, okay, hey, this is. And I don't want to completely sell religion, right? Because I'm not atheist, I'm agnostic, because like scientific theory, if I knew for 100% fact that God didn't exist, it would be a scientific fact. I don't agree with a lot of these scientific people that are like, oh well, God can't exist because science. I mean, I don't know, right? But I know that if the 540,000 years that we've walked this earth, we've worshipped over 5,000 gods, and Christianity is in its infancy in comparison to that. So
That's true. Well, and I'm one of those dirty pagans, those
right,
filthy heathens. Well, and the way that I look at it, I'm more agnostic. And I'm agnostic through lack of evidence. Um, like you said, if we knew for a fact that God didn't exist, then it would be a scientific fact. But we don't. Really, we don't. Even scientists admit that freely. We can't prove that a God doesn't exist. It's unlikely. And I like you said, in our tons of years of existence, we've worshipped over 5,000 gods. But I think that there's a lot of really interesting parallels between the laws of attraction or quantum observation and religion. Because for me, I recognize and agree with most of the things, if not all of the things, that you're saying in regards to the laws of attraction. I use religion, specifically Norse paganism, I guess would be a way to word it, to as more of a totem, as more of a way to focus the ways that I want to project my thoughts and needs and wants into the universe. Um, and not necessarily in the same way that other religious folks may use their religion as a way to forego accountability. I use it more of a way to put faces to and names to aspects of life or aspects of existence or um I would say similar to the way well, actually, I want to come back to that. Hold on, let me write it down. That's this whole ass other thing, but it is related. So like I use my quote unquote religion, I would say my faith, as a way to project. It's the way that I want to interact with the universe. It's the way that I want to manifest the law of attraction. It's the way that I want to kind of and there's a lot of for instance, I would say this is probably true with a lot of folks who are religious. I like the fundamental teachings of this religion. They resonate well with me. There are some obviously that the world has outgrown, and I'm sure that most people who I would say there are probably a lot of people who follow a similar faith who agree, and that would probably be true across many religions as we're learning. But for me, it's more of a way to, like I said, interact with the universe. It's not necessarily like a this
Well,
is like this is and it has to be kind of finality sort of thing. You know what I mean?
well, all of this, and not that I don't, not that I want to stop talking about laws of attraction, because I could talk about laws of attraction all day, right?
Yeah.
But it all leads back to the same thing, right? And I'm not trying to sidestep this, but um, whether it be laws of attraction, Christianity, paganism, whatever, all of this, it's a need to explain one thing, right? And drawing the line back to essence versus existence, and where that even comes from, right? Because the base philosophy that all of this is taken from, or needs to be explained, is an existentialism, right? So all of these philosophers that I'm talking about, whether it be Plato, Aristotle, Jean Paul, Nietzsche, Viktor Frankl, who, like, I'd love to talk about in a little bit, um, it's all born out of existentialism, right? And existentialism, is the what is our purpose as a being, right? Because a star has a purpose, a giraffe has its purpose. We are born with free will, which is a huge thing that Viktor Frankl goes into, and that is the crux of our existence, right? You
Okay.
you have the freedom to practice paganism, right?
True. Like
I
as a
have,
human being,
right, as a
which
human
we
being,
haven't always been, but you know.
right. Well, and this is where Nietzsche goes into, right? Like, we are free of essence once we become once we make something of ourselves, right? And because,
So make something of ourselves in terms of like how we define. So would you say we should define that when you say make something of ourselves? Are you saying because the way that I interpret that when you say make something of ourselves is we are bound by our essence as human beings until we define the parameters in which we want to operate in the universe, understanding fully that those may change as we continue our.
well, that's Nietzsche's explanation, and I'm pretty sure that he only kept that as an explanation because he wanted to be able to tie existence to a higher power in religion.
And the reason why you wanted to do that, I guess we'll never know. What my
But
cynical brain wants to say, for lack of accountability, right? I love that this episode is going to be you and I and everybody else in the chat just sending out random, vague, really philosophical questions. It's almost like we're all at a music festival just tripping balls, and we're all like bundled up, have a camelback full of water, and we're just walking around to strangers who are dressed up in rave outfits asking, like, to use Iron Fletcher's last message, for example, hey man, is purpose and essence determined by observation of self? And then like Rad said, do they all have purpose or did we assign it to them? Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Okay, so purpose and essence are two different things, right? Your purpose has to be found, right? So you could say, and this is the beautiful part about human beings, right? It comes down to two different things. Do you have a fixed mindset or do you have a growth mindset, right? So you might, and I think that they're interchangeable at some points. When
Okay, can you
especially
elaborate on those two for me?
a fixed
Growth.
mindset
Yeah,
versus a
yeah,
growth
yeah.
mindset. Okay, so a fixed mindset is somebody saying, "This is what I am. This is who I am, and I'm never going to change."
Okay,
Right? I can't learn anything else. I have no interest in learning anything else. I this is my existence. Right?
okay,
This
okay.
is
And we see that a lot in folks. There seems to be like an age thing related to that, right? I've noticed that a lot of folks, the older a person is, the more likely it is that they have more of a fixed mentality, which I personally theorize is just from emotional exhaustion personally, but that's for another time. But do
well. I
so.
feel like they just give it up. People just give up. They're like,
Sure,
"This is who I
this is the way it
am."
is. Who gives a fuck?
A growth mindset is a person that's ever evolving, right?
Okay. Well, and I
So
would say this comes back down to what I was talking about with Jess in our love episode in terms of mental agility, right? Because you have to have, I would say, a person has to have a certain level of mental agility to be able to have a growth based mindset. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, um, but I'm going off of the definition that I inferred from context clues from its title. But in order to have a growth based mindset, you have to first recognize where things went wrong and how things could have been better and what you, of a person, could have done or will do in the future to do that.
well, here's the thing is that, and this is, you can take this for what it is, but I think that a fixed mindset is a lie, right? I think that we all are, even the ones of us that give up at times,
Like, we
because
still know things are like, we still have that nagging feeling, that guilt associated with this isn't going the way I want it to. Is that where we come from?
right, the
Okay.
the whole thing is that the only thing that's fixed in our lives is death, right?
And
Like,
taxes.
right. Um, because even if um, say you go through a breakup and it's horrific, and you're like, life's over, and I'm just gonna sit here in my house and not turn the lights on and whatever.
I'm going to grind
Eventually,
a new character to level 60.
right? Eventually, you're going to come out of your hole. It doesn't matter if it takes a day, a month, a year, whatever. Eventually, unless you die, right? You are
Which does
going.
happen, unfortunately, sometimes.
Well, right, and I don't want to discount that, right? Because it's mental health is very important, but
Right. I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel like you were being dismissive.
um, I'm only coming at this from a logical standpoint, right?
Right.
Because I think that um, when death happens from that, it's more from an emotional reality and not a logical reality,
Oh, I think so too.
right? Um, But anyway, I'm sorry going there, but I think that we as humans are forever evolving, right? Like your life has changed two or three times since I met you, right? And
Significantly, yeah, yeah.
right, you're in a much and yes, the situations are different, and but you have and again, this all ties together, right? You and this again, if we started at existentialism, and what is the purpose of your life, right? Well, my life has no purpose, therefore I have a fixed mindset. But no, you've taken your life and you've taken steps and you've had a growth mindset and you have willed yourself to become what you are now.
Sure. Well, and I honestly, I couldn't agree more. I'm not coming from the like I worked hard to have all the things that I have and I busted my ass kind of standpoint, which is true, but not the point. I agree with you. Well, and it's been a combination of a couple of things. I think it wasn't until my last big career where I realized the benefit of professional accountability and how it can serve you in the professional world. And that coincided really well with the time that I had already been well underway in taking personal accountability for things that I was doing in life. And ironically, it didn't come from a place of wanting to improve as a person. It came from a place of wanting to um, not hurt people, right? I wanted to, it came from a place of consideration for the people around me, which is hilarious because in that I also found purpose, but we'll come back to that later. The, oh, but the point is that I didn't notice the changes in my life. And the second thing I got this from was the first time I was really turned on to the law of attraction and I guess quantum mechanics and physics and like the universe and existence in general wasn't really until the company I work for now and the boss that I have now. The CEO of this company would frequently swing by my office, really sharp dude, and we would just gab for fucking hours, right? Hours a week. We'd gab. He'd stop by every day, and we'd just bullshit for a little bit. And he kind of turned me on to he was one of those people who gives you a shit ton of different tidbits of information, and if it's something you learn more about, you'll just go and research it later. And it became very um, obvious quickly into having conversations with him that I should probably have a pen ready or a notepad or whatever. So I just started writing shit down that he was saying to me. I had no fucking idea what he was talking about, like the laws of attraction and like energy and frequency and vibration, and Nikola Tesla, and how a lot of that has to do with the laws of attraction and how it works on a more mechanical level, or how it could work on a more mechanical level, and more about how, if you think about it, this one's the one that really blew my mind. So life is on a single plane, your life, because in space-time, you will never exist in the same space twice. And people are like, well, yeah, but the Earth rotates around every 24 hours. You're going to be in the same spot every 24 hours, theoretically, or every once a year on the sun. But what people forget about is the fucking galaxy. You're never going to be alive as it takes our solar system to orbit the galaxy. So theoretically, each moment that you live your life on day by day is a moment in space time, in actual space, that
Well,
we won't overlap. It will never be again. So to digress, to bring it all back, to come back to what you were saying in terms of well, I lost it. It's gone. The gardener came by and hacked down that spider web. I got a little
who
bit too offbeat.
whoever said that to you, buddy, is. I mean, I could understand where they could say that from a philosophical sense, but just in pure scientific reason, and because for some reason I just had to take an astronomy class. The fact that you would be in the same place, even if you were standing in the same spot in time and space, that you would be there 24 hours later, just isn't factual, right? Just
No,
because of
no, 100%. Well, but I didn't think about that until somebody brought it up, right? Nobody told me
right,
that. It was just it wasn't something that I stopped to think about in terms of us existing at a not only a certain point in our lives. Like for instance, I can never go back to 25, unfortunately. Um, so just as our time, as our perception of time as it relates to our life is relative, that is also true for our actual physical location in space.
right. Well,
Jesus, 200 million years?
even if we listed on a linear plane, right, and we were moving just in one, I mean, our planet moves in a certain way, our solar system moves as a certain way, and we all move in a different way within our galaxy, right? Because we don't move like front to back or side to side, like the universe, or not the universe, but the if we're talking things on a galactical sense, right? Like
Capital TH,
there
the.
there isn't a line of linear progression that our solar system, or even our galaxy moves on, right? It's more like a wavelength, right? So our solar system moves on this wavelength inside of our galaxy.
Well, and the universe is still expanding. It's
Right.
interesting. Hey, do you think that the collapse of the universe, or the cessation of its uh, existence, meaning the tail end? You play Snake? You ever play Snake? Now,
Yes.
do you think that that end of existence has already happened? It just hasn't gotten here yet, or do you think it's still whatever exploded is still exploding?
Um.
Because that's
So
the big theory is that the existence, our universe specifically, is we are currently living in an explosion. Like you see an explosion go off the shockwave, the ends of the shockwave are the universe, and it's still going, and we're currently still a part of the explosion, which is why we're moving theoretically, right?
that's a hard question, but and I could give you my answer, but it's gonna seem lazy, right? Because we
Okay.
have you could look up any type of deeper type of topic, right? Like that, and there's things out there with proof that theory is correct. There's theories from well-known and respected scientists that say that we live in a matrix-like society, and we all don't really exist, that this is all a simulation,
Oh,
right?
I saw that on TikTok. The CIA files. That was it. The um, gate tapes.
Right. So these are bigger things that I care to give thought to, right?
Well, and the crazy
Like
thing is, the more thought we give to them, just by what we've defined today, gives them a little more weight.
our existence exists to fill this thing that we have labeled as our perception of time, right?
Our
We
life.
we have we have this space that we need to fill with something. So I'm going to fill this something with you know actions or thoughts or conspiracy theories or whatever it is that
World
a
of
person.
Warcraft.
Right, World of Warcraft. I'm
And
I'm going to fill this space with this stuff,
we're
right?
gonna do things that make us have more happy feelings and more bad feelings over the duration of that time,
What well, and
theoretically.
there's again rant type thing, but the whole idea in psychology, right? Because the I'm going into human science, so there's a thing that talked about how there is no good and bad of anything, right? No
Like
good and bad
morality
feeling.
doesn't exist.
No, morality exists, but it exists by itself. The fact that it's good or bad is a
It's
farce.
subjective.
Yeah, right? Because what you view as a bad thing might not really be a bad thing,
Like weed.
right?
Or don't not bad thing. What other people view as a bad thing is not a bad thing.
Right. Right. So and we learn what good and bad is from other people, right? There's nothing in nature that suggests, hey, this is bad, right? It's we as a people have deemed this good or bad, right? So like we'll take something easy like anger, right? Somebody might say, well, anger is bad. Well, what is anger and why is anger bad,
Right.
right? A person did this to you, so they're bad. Well, why is it bad? Because it made you feel a certain way? What if how you felt is just perceived as bad and it's not actually bad, right?
Right. Or
What
what if
if
it
it's
was? What if it was? Well, and I think that there's a lot of weight, and this is a good. I do want to interject quick because we can tie this to a social observation as well, especially as we come to a time where folks, and not to be all edgy on the internet, but as folks are a little bit more aware of their identity, which is another buzzword we'll come back to, but and things that don't vibe well with them earlier, like you and I were talking about how we don't want to offend religious people, for example, right? So, um, I think so. Would you say that a person's preference or likelihood to be offended is a observation of what you're talking about?
yeah, oh, I mean, because everything is subjective, right? All things are subjective. And how I might perceive something isn't necessarily the same way that you're going to perceive something,
I
right?
agree. I actually have a whole last other episode happening with my buddy Jess about the power of perception.
I think that most of life is about how we perceive things, right? And it describes it describes a lot about who we are, right?
I agree.
Life is two things. Life is choices and perception.
Okay.
And that basically defines who you are as a person. How you perceive life and the choices you make within it, right?
Or the
Like,
choices that other people make and how you perceive those.
but that
But
I
it's still
would
choices and perception.
right. Like if you did something, I could choose how to perceive that and choose how I'm going to act to that,
Well, so I
right?
want to dig into that a little bit. And it's a good segue too. Because we can't always, right? There's a common phrase
Okay.
that the first thing that you think is the way that you were raised or reared, and the second thing that you think is who you are or who you're trying to be. So I know I'm a good. At least I'm gonna fight for this because if it's not true, then I'm just an asshole. But I'm like a real judgy cunt, and when I meet folks, I don't say those things out loud, and it's not stuff that like I don't make a conscious decision to like judge a person. Um, but I do recognize it immediately when it happens in my brain. I'm like, hey, maybe shut the fuck up. Um, so that would be a thought and a perception, like you were saying. But I didn't have any control over the first thought. That just kind of popped into my head. But I did have
Okay.
control over the second thought, or even the third thought, or any subsequent thoughts.
So I'm going to give you a thought experiment, okay?
Okay.
So which is better, reaction or proaction?
Define better. Better in what sense?
Well, what would
What's the
be
purpose?
what would be more beneficial in your life? To be reactive or proactive?
I
I could tie it.
and I'm not just trying to be a pain in the ass, but I cannot give you a general all-encompassing answer because I can immediately think of several examples where both would be better in different parts of my life. Like
Okay.
I yeah. So
Okay.
you'd have to be more specific.
Okay, I got it. Um you log into World of Warcraft,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And you are on your hunter
Uh-huh.
and you're like,
Likely.
I'm gonna go raid,
Okay.
right? So you go into the raid finder, you find a group, you get into a raid group, you go into a raid, you're in Castle Nathria.
Nathria.
Okay, so you have two options. You could just say YOLO and, run up to the boss and get killed, right? I mean, and that's basically being reactive, right? Like I don't need to take any prerequisites to this experience, right? So right?
That's
You're gonna go watch videos. You're going to study how your classes played, right? So and the reason that I'm bringing all this up is this is very much first thought versus second thought, right? And while you want to believe that the first thought is who you really are, it's not, right?
well,
Because
no,
if
I said specifically how you were raised and the things that you were taught.
right, um,
Maybe even human nature.
so while a person might
Mm-mm-mm.
have that initial thought doesn't define who they are, right?
Right. Well, that's what
Like,
the second thought is for.
well, right, but the initial thought isn't who you are because that thought is reactionary,
Right.
right? Like it's like remember one night I was like, "Hey, you need to go wake up our buddy. It's raid time,"
Oh, I do
right?
remember, and I know exactly where you're going. Yeah,
And you're like, "I'm not going to do
I'm
that
not
because
doing that.
he'll shoot me in the face,"
Yeah, he
right?
will shoot me.
And
He has guns in there, and I mean what I said.
okay. So, okay, but that's first thought versus second thought type stuff,
Well,
right?
no,
Because
it's first thought and then second thought because the first thought was, I'm not going to do that. He'll shoot me. And the second thought was, well, would he really shoot me? Let me think about it for a second. And then I concluded that the answer was yes, he'll definitely shoot me. So, I mean, I
but
see the point that you're trying to make with your example. It just doesn't apply to this one. Um,
well, no,
but I see
I'm
what you're trying
saying
to
that
say.
he wouldn't the
You don't know Jeff like I know Jeff then.
no, I'm just saying that the reaction doesn't define who you are, right? It's an impulse.
Right. It was something that I learned through my observations, or what did you call it earlier? Choices and perceptions. Through my perceptions
Right.
of the world was how I built that reaction. Well, and that's exactly what I'm saying. People don't have people. I mean, the very nature of its existence, buzzwords, in of the reaction is that it is uncontrollable. Otherwise, it would be a conscious thought, right?
Right. Right. Well, and
I
it's
think we're saying the
just
same shit.
yeah. Well, I was going against it because I you had said that the not saying that you said that's who you are, right? But the premise of and I've heard and I've had this debate before in class with other students that well, I'm a bad person because I thought this, right? And 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 I my premise is that your initial thought is a knee jerk reaction, right? It doesn't define who you are or make you a good and bad person, right? If somebody taps you, and the reason why I had brought up our buddy and waking him up is because like if somebody taps you on the shoulder, right? Like you might turn around and jump, right? Like that jumping is it doesn't mean that you're a scared person. It just means that that was a reaction to something that happened. It doesn't necessarily define who you are as a person, right? Like we say a lot of very um in our conversations or conversations with our friends, you know, away from the rest of society, we might say some very off-colored things that might be offensive to other people. That part of us, while we're in that moment, don't define us as who we are in
Well, true.
in the bigger scheme of things,
Well,
right?
and moreover, I think, but that's earned.
Right.
That's because of the rapport that we have within our group, and that we know individually that, more or less, that each one of us are not horrific human beings. Um, and well, and that's kind of what I wanted to segue into, is that humor specifically. I think that humor supersedes. Um, um, when people say, "I think all things are funny," I think that's true. I think that when they say humor has no limits, I think that's true. But I want to add the caveat that you do need to read your room. That's an important skill. That's the difference between some dickhead on the subway and an actual stand-up comedian. That's like the skill that you need to refine to succeed in comedy, is reading the room. But like humor people don't really get to control what they laugh at. You said earlier people feel like dicks when they say something mean to somebody sometimes. I've also seen where people feel like dicks, or they at least say that they feel like dicks for laughing at something. A good example, there's a whole ass subreddit, I'm going to hell for this, where something really fucked up, made somebody laugh. And there are so many different famous comedians who said this better than I will, so y'all can go look them up. But the point is that humor, I think, is a really good example of what you're talking about in terms of life being a choice and a perception, um, because folks don't really get to choose at the things that they laugh at, or at least that they find humorous, if we're gonna be real about it. But they do have the choice. But other folks do have the choice to, like we said earlier, like kind of read the room. Um, so, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't have accountability for their jokes if they do fail to do that, right? Like if somebody does just say, like you just said, some of the jokes that we make, we only do so in what's considered um, comfortable company. Um,
Right.
well, I mean, I think that's why. But I ride the fine line on that one, because I have found power in the phrase that another person's emotional response or reaction, as we're calling it here, is not my responsibility. But I don't agree with that, at least not all of the time. And I find that to be, if somebody adopts that as a fixed personality trait, to use what you were talking about earlier, I find it to be quite inconsiderate.
Well, and that's what I was sitting here thinking about while you were talking is that releases somebody of accountability,
Right.
right?
Which is something that you
Because
need.
while
Oh, that's fuck
right,
yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
Like there has to be a level of accountability, right? Like, and it's not just it's like, as you put it, like reading the room, right? Like people, because people are ever evolving, right? Their perceptions in life and how they interact with other people change, right? So while something might be funny to a person now, doesn't mean that it's going to be funny to a person
The
later,
opposite is also true.
right? Or what's not funny now might be funny later, and it's because people's ideals change over time, right? It's yes, I mean, you're not going to go see Dave Chappelle, like, unless you know that you're not going to be offended by what Dave Chappelle says, right? Because like, and I bring up Dave Chappelle because he's very edgy on what he says,
Well,
right?
and he's actually addressed this himself too. Is if hey, I mean,
Right.
if you already know you don't like my comedy, then don't watch my shit.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing, right? So if you know that Dave Chappelle is falls into this block, and you go see Dave Chappelle, and like he steps outside of his block, um it's still not on him to have to apologize, for himself.
And well, and specifically, I want to address it, at least in my observation here, that I would agree with you, but only I would say because Dave Chappelle is in the industry of entertainment and creating, and the very nature of stand up comedy, or even I would say the Chappelle Show, which you shouldn't be watching on Netflix. Research it if you don't know why. Um, then um, it's like take that as a personal note if you're offended. Like, oh, maybe take it as a data point. Oh, maybe Dave Chappelle's not as awesome as I thought he was, or he's not as awesome for me as he used to be, or whatever. Like you're saying, people's ideologies and ideas of what life is and should be change over time. So, well, and the same could be said for entertainers. The entertainers change over time too. There are people who were shitty when they were younger and are great now, and who are great when they were younger but are shitty now. So, we have so many immediate examples of what you were
but
saying.
but that all of that's on a commercial level,
Yeah,
though,
well,
right?
that's what I'm talking about
Like,
specifically commercially, because I think that if it's not, and well, and that is this whole last other episode about how all of a sudden you get to avoid accountability if there's a profit to be made, and how we're basically slaves to capitalism. But that's a whole last other thing. But I would say that anything less than commercial,
well,
or at an enterprise level, which I guess is still commercial, I think then we start to venture a little bit into inconsideration, because by the logic, if we apply the logic that we're saying on a commercial level to an interpersonal level, then that means somebody can just walk into a party and say a bunch of shit, and if somebody doesn't like it, then they have to leave the party.
well, and I just want to segue back to something you just said, just to
Send it.
to do it. But the idea of capitalism and what is that word you just used? Anyway,
I use
it,
so
it all
many.
leads into it all leads into consumerism, right? And we are the United States is the biggest consumer in the world. This is why we're the greatest, or looked at as one of the greatest countries in the
Uh,
world. I'm not saying that we are,
well, I
so
mean,
don't.
I just don't even think we're looked at like that anymore.
But we are the biggest consumer in the world, and everything falls under consumerism, right? Because consumerism is what backs the dollar, right? I mean, there's a whole thing that's based in sociology, the study into sociology, about the golden arrow, right? If you like Google the golden arrow as far as consumerism go, and that basically explains our existence as humans in the United States. But anyway, I just wanted to go back on that. But and I think that consumerism is important even in the realm of comedy, right? Because in commercialism, that was the other word I was looking for, sorry. Um is because, like, even if a person doesn't find Dave Chappelle funny, if you're like, hey dude, I got some tickets to go see Dave Chappelle, right? And I want you to go see Dave Chappelle with me. Maybe I don't even like Dave Chappelle, but I go see Dave Chappelle with you because I want to go hang out with you, right?
Right.
And I go and I laugh at his jokes, but I don't even think Dave Chappelle is funny. And I'm not saying that I don't,
So,
but
yeah,
I'm
I'm
just
tracking. You're talking about the story. Yeah.
right. So the idea is that because he's a comedian and because everybody else is laughing, I have to laugh as well.
So you're
Or
saying that there's like a peer pressure element.
right, like just because he's funny for the sake of being funny, outweighs, one's own personal belief. And I don't know. The golden arrow and stuff like that's it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least. So coming back to kind of digress a little bit, when it comes to accountability, we're saying that the first thought a person has is reactionary. The second thought that a person has is who they are. I think that that's a really good observation of a growth oriented mindset. Is that, what was the words that you used? Growth what? Growth fixed? Growth,
Yeah,
no, not
a
fixed.
growth mindset
So
versus a
so
fixed.
to have a growth mindset, you have to be able to have accountability for yourself and your actions. And this loosely ties to the comedy thing, which we'll circle back around to chase that spiderweb back down. Because this
Right.
time I took okay notes. So I would say that for a growth based mindset, you have to have accountability. In order to have accountability, you have to recognize a reaction when it happens. You have to recognize what is happening, and then you have to interrupt it. And these are not my ideas. This was taught to me by the last organization I worked for. It's like a professional development kind of thing. You have to recognize where the issue is, if you're having an issue with something, and then kind of interpret it. The best example I can think of is habits that people are trying to break. For instance, folks who are on a weight loss journey, maybe they're eating a lot of 3 a.m. taquitos, speaking from experience, and they recognize that that's causing heartburn when they wake up in the morning, and their belts are a little bit tighter, so maybe they want to stop eating 3 a.m. taquitos, right? The first reaction is, I want this 3 a.m. taquito. And then you have to recognize, hey, shit, here we go again. I want a 3 a.m. taquito. And then you have to interrupt it. If you want it to change, that's basically what it is too, is that in order to have things that you haven't had, you have to do things you haven't done. You have to, or
Well,
if you want to have things that you don't have, you have to do things you're not doing.
and this is why I approached you about this topic, right? Right? You're gonna be like, well, what does me eating taquitos at 3 o'clock in the morning have to do with existentialism?
No, I think it's
It
related.
it all it all ties to this, right? And not because existentialism just isn't the purpose, right? One of the biggest issues inside of existentialism, the biggest problem that we have as humans is that we have free will. We have freedom. And that is our biggest downfall, right? Because we have the free will to have taquitos, even though we know that it's detrimental to our health in some form. Um, that's a problem, right? Because if we didn't have that free will, we wouldn't do it, right? If life was a linear progression of, you know, believing that food is just fuel for our bodies to exist, and we didn't have the free will to say eat taquitos or ice cream, or things that would make us fat and sit around on computers all day and get fat, it wouldn't be a problem,
So you're saying that the very
right?
existence
So
of free
so
will, of
the
choice.
the question
Okay.
is, because we have free will and the power of choice and perception, right? It's that, what is that line in Spider-Man with great
Power
with
comes responsibility.
right. So our superpower is free will, right? This is what separates us from every other every other being on this planet, right? Every other species on this planet. Our superpower as humans is free will,
Oh, I thought it was opposable thumbs.
right?
Well, and I get where you're coming from. But I would say that so just to make sure that I do get where you're coming from, you're saying that the very existence of free will, by its very nature, discredits essence.
Right.
Okay. So I would say, Miss Nick says in chat, lack of self control and even times a lack of value in herself. Just to kind of go with what you were saying, I would say. Well, I mean, and this is where it gets a little bit hairy, and this is why I'm really glad that you approached me about this topic, because this is something that we've gabbed about before for hours and probably will gab about in the future again for hours. Uh, I think that statement is still subjective. Because I think that it exists within the realm of possibility that that the things that, for instance, like me wanting 3 a.m. taquitos versus not wanting 3 a.m. taquitos, what makes me, and I get that the obvious answer is the munchies, and that's what it is. But outside of that, what makes me want taquitos? Furthermore, is me saying, no, I don't want the taquitos an actual observation of free will, or is it the way that it was written? Is it already predetermined that I'm gonna have these taquitos, and every time that I tell myself I want these taquitos and I don't have those taquitos, that like it's not, who's to say that I made that choice, right? Because if, especially think about it this way, because of all the times that I lacked the self-control to not eat those taquitos and woke up with that heartburn, what finally got me over that hump that time I decided to stop eating the 3 a.m. taquitos?
Because you're choosing, right?
Well, maybe, but
So so
but if I had the power to simply choose to not do this thing, why didn't I exercise it sooner?
because you you have to will it, man, right?
Well,
So
but that's what I'm
so the
saying. If I have
so
just that
the
power,
opposite the opposite, right, is to say that life is scripted, right? So somewhere in the cosmos, in the heavens, or you know wherever this said book exists, that Bo Miles is going to, this is what Bose Miles is going to do at 3:34 a.m. on the 10th of January 2021, right? He is going to decide or not decide to eat taquitos at 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
well,
But
but
you're
then we said that history repeats itself. I mean, and I know that that's just a fundamental
well,
theory, but I'm saying that like
right,
there are some
but
theories of times that say that this already happened.
well, this goes into like, and I love analogies, right? Because
Also,
I
just
think,
say Bo from now on. I'll edit out my last name later.
okay, well, sorry,
All right.
I'm sorry, dude. Um, I'm saying that the reason why things keep happening, and I'm sorry, I'm getting like too many thoughts in my head.
The spider
I
webs are
love
building, man.
I love analogies, right? Because
Me too.
analogies are basically like mini philosophies, right?
Right.
And and there's different analogies for different things. So the reason why we keep doing these things is because we are forgetting why forgetting why what we did. It's a cause and effect thing, right? So if you get up in the morning at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're like, wow, I'm hungry, I think I'm going to cook some taquitos, or you're sitting there gaming and you're like, wow, I'm hungry, it's 3 a.m. and I'm going to make some taquitos. You're not thinking. Your reactionary response isn't, hey, they're going to give me heartburn when I wake up. The only thing that you're thinking about in that moment is, I'm hungry. I need to become satiated, right? Like I
At
need
first,
to.
yes, but the more that I did it, the more it was, I'm hungry, I need to be satiated, but I'm also going to regret this in the morning. Like they did become hand in hand.
Well, right, and then you start, because you have a growth mindset, right?
Oh.
Your free will is giving you this choice, like, hey, because there's cause and effect, right? And cause and effect is a real thing. Like, okay, well, here's the cause of this, and this is what the after effect is going to be. So my free will is giving me the choice to have this cause and effect, right? because if you don't want to deal with the effect, it's the free will that's going to give you the choice to eat or not to eat those taquitos in
Oh,
the
I see
morning.
what you're saying. So the observation of free will in this case is to take the information that I've gathered through experience in this case and apply it to make a different choice.
Right.
But
And that's
at the end of the day, the first impression or the reaction here is still I want fucking taquitos.
right.
I mean, because I mean, and I have had like cravings before. Like for instance, today I really want fucking Chinese food. But I'm not gonna buy Chinese food mainly because I don't want to, like in the grand scheme of things. But I do have a craving for Chinese food. So, um,
So if life was absent of free will, you would
just get Chinese
100%.
food. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. That's cool. Well, I mean, maybe right, unless and again, like that's again the subjective thing. Whereas we don't know, and like we talked about at the beginning of the show, because scientists can't definitively prove that there isn't a god, that it wasn't predeterminately written. But I see what you're saying in that. I'm saying that there wouldn't. I see that that wouldn't be an observation of free will if I just ate the Chinese food because I wanted Chinese food or ate the taquitos or whatever. But the point is maybe the thing or person or whatever that wrote the book that is what everybody is supposed to do does, especially because if you think about it from a religious standpoint, these beings are omnipotent. They know everything that has happened, will happen, and is happening. So if they know everything that will happen, they can say, all right, well, this person is going to be slave to this addiction of 3 a.m. taquitos for 3 years, and then I'm gonna make this thing happen to them, which is acid reflux, and it's gonna be horrible, and then they're not gonna want taquitos at 3 a.m. anymore after that, except for this one time, like in the middle of nowhere, they're gonna say, "Oh fuck it, I haven't had 3 a.m. taquitos in a hot minute. Maybe just once won't kill me, and I'll have some Tums in the morning." Because we're automatically applying our intellectual reach and capability to that of whatever would be writing that story.
Well, and the debate between essence and existence, right? The I think that the answer to it is free will. Um, just because if you the it to say that a person is born with essence, and I'm not, and I know I'm stepping away from the Chinese and Chiquito at 3 a.m. debate.
I
Um,
mean, maybe not. That was just an analogy.
but no, I know. To believe that essence pre-exists existence, right, and that your life is predetermined, right, that you will eat taquitos at 3 a.m. every morning, because you're going to be hungry every morning, takes away the free will or choice that you have of eating the taquitos and or Chinese food for that matter, right? Because um, it's not predetermined. Maybe one day you'll have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? And then you're going to throw everything off. Why did you have peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Because you're supposed to eat taquitos or Chinese food, right? Free will is absence of essence, in my opinion, right? Because essence is basically saying, well, this is what you are, this is what you will be, therefore you do not have free will.
Okay, but what if essence isn't that specific? I would wage
Well,
because I would say that free will doesn't necessarily dictate an absence of essence because like we talked about earlier, essence can be just a predetermined set of parameters that a person can exist in. I can or cannot order food or make 3 a.m. taquitos. Whether or not I will is an observation and a flex of my like free will,
well,
like you were saying, but like the capability of doing those things doesn't isn't that what in essence is?
okay, and I preface this at the beginning of the show, and I know it's been a little while,
Yeah.
but there's a broader sense of essence, right? And then there is a more personal sense of essence, right? So the broader sense of essence says, okay, well, a giraffe will be a giraffe, a human will be a human, right?
Well, right, but that's what I'm saying.
So,
But then, what it means to be a human or what it means to be a giraffe changes from giraffe to giraffe to giraffe to
well,
giraffe. Fucking Christ. Or human to human. Let's go that route because that's a little bit easier to say.
but but and that's just the broader sense of essence, though, right? Like what you will be is this, and that's the broader sense of essence. The more personal sense of essence is what your nature is as a person, right? And the more personal sense of essence, the idea, at least in philosophy, is that what you will be is predetermined, right? You will be a blacksmith, you will be a Twitch streamer. Like this is what you will be, and you are free of choice in that, right? Because this is what your quote unquote destiny is, right? This is what you're fated to be,
I see,
right?
but even that but that still leaves room for an expression of free will within that definition of essence. Because are you going to be a blacksmith that specializes in horseshoes? Are you going to be a blacksmith that specializes in battle axes? Are you going to
Well,
be
right.
a Twitch streamer that specializes in talk shows? Are you going to be a Twitch streamer that specializes in like I don't know, IRL streams? I guess this is, or something Rocket League. Is it going to be? Because I mean, I think that, well, that's what I'm saying, that I don't think that the existence of one completely discredits the existence of the other, because one of them fits inside of the other one.
Well, I again, and I go back to perception and choice, right? That's what life is about. Because you can perceive something any way you want to perceive it, right?
That's true. Well, and
So,
it can change too. We'll use relationships for examples. Did you do the fucking bell curve of, this is a great relationship, I love you, I'm gonna get married, and I know you kind of did this one to the this is bad, we're not gonna be married anymore. But I don't know. And then have you done like the, oh, these are all the good things that were great about it, like after the fact, or with any other situation that you have to be a relationship where like the perception of what has happened, or the memories that you have, or the takeaways that you have from any sort of situation change from time to time. The feelings that you choose to observe. I mean, especially if we tie it into kind of the quantum realm that we talked about earlier, how everything exists until it's observed, and then it is what it is. But then free will is a way to express the fact that that observation of everything that already is changes, or can change.
well, I believe everything can change on its own if it has. And this is what I was saying about free will being the kryptonite to essence, right? Because if we perceive things a certain way, the basis of perception is that we have the free will to perceive things different,
I see what you mean.
right?
Well, but
So
I love that. I love
so
the fact that. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry, but like me and you've been friends for a long time. You might view something a different way. You might perceive something differently from me. And you have the free will to do so, right? So so the only thing that's there, right? If we stripped everything away from me and you, the only thing if we stripped everything away, the only thing that we have in common is that we both exist, right?
True.
And in a broader sense, we have the essence that we're both humans, right? But the fact that
Theoretically.
we both exist, right, in this realm, and then what defines us as people isn't our essences, it's the choices by which free will has let us decide, right? And then in the choices that we've made in our lives, and what has, you know helped us grow as people, are the perceptions that we have, right? So from childhood on, the one constant that we have all had, whether, and this is void of parental guidance or familial guidance or whatever, is our free choice, our free will to choose what we want, right? So because of free will, right, the philosophical debate of, which came first, the chicken or the egg, or essence or existence, I think free will bumps existence over, right?
Okay.
Because free will is the, in the triad of life, the third thing that helps make it stand, right? Um, it probably actually lends to the other two things, right? Because without free will, you have no perception, you have no choice, you have no essence, right? Like if you can't choose to be a streamer, if you can't choose to play games,
If you can't choose which aspect of a quantum object to observe, right? Because if you can't choose something out of everything, you don't know where to go, what to do, who to be.
so have you ever read Descartes?
I've seen
The
Descartes.
so Descartes was a philosopher, and he
That was
wrote
funny.
he so he had these meditations, right? And in the at the end of his first meditation, he fell apart as a person, right? He questioned all existence, right? Um, and I'm giving you the Cliff Note version just because I don't want to. I mean, you could if we talk about Descartes in his five meditations, it'll go way over time. But so basically, at the end of his first meditation, he was broken down as a human, and he questioned his very existence, right? And everybody's heard the term, um, "I think, therefore I am," right?
Right, pretty popular
Which
phrase. Instant
which
left swipe on dating profiles.
right? Um, which it was completely taken out of context, but it's funny nonetheless, right? So the next morning, okay, so at the end of his first meditation, he goes to bed and he's questioning the existence of everything, right? And
As one
he
does after a bender.
at the beginning of his second meditation, he wakes up and he realizes, you know, I exist, right? Because I have a thought, right? It takes a thinker to think a thought. It doesn't matter, if your body or the room around you or the air you're breathing, it doesn't matter if those are all perceptual things. The fact that, I mean, you could be just a brain in a batter of goo somewhere like the Matrix. And a lot of philosophers today, when talking about Descartes, use the Matrix type setting
An example.
as as an example of his his basis, that it doesn't matter exactly what your form is. The fact that you're thinking proves existence.
So that begs the question, how powerful is a being that creates through perceiving?
But that's what we all do,
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
right?
Like it,
So so and again, if you could get lost in the rabbit hole of YouTube and other things that talk about this, and it all ties back to existentialism. But um, the premise that you can perceive reality, your reality is what you perceive of it, right? If you perceive life, and this ties everything together, right? Laws of attraction, existentialism, um, nihilism, Christianity, Buddhists, Muslims, if whatever your perception of life is, you have the free will to make it a reality, right? Your perception becomes reality by free will,
well, and I,
right? And
I have examples of that in my life too. There's been situations where I felt something about one situation, like we talked about earlier, and then the way that I felt about that situation changed, either through personal intention and effort, or time, or situations changing, or new perspective, or whatever the case may be. A perspective that I had on life in whatever situation, the professional world, for example, or my goals were one thing at one time, and now they're a different thing. And I feel like that's the ultimate expression of what you're talking about. Is so well. And if you think about it, what's really beautiful is if we relate what you're saying back to our space time conversation earlier, in that the choices that you're making specifically as it relates to the perception of your life and the world around you, really builds the way that that life is going to look over a linear time. It's like, well, I mean, and this is why I want to have a whole ass other episode about the fourth dimension and time, and how we as third dimensional creatures are probably observed by fourth dimensional creatures who see us in our entirety, which really kind of shatters the idea of essence if we relate it specifically to time, because essence, as you're talking about, and perception and free will, all of those things exist um, at the level of time being linear, right? Because if we say that time is not linear, if we say that to go outside of ourselves into a different dimension or whatever,
I,
being observed
time
as
is
our entire time by being observed by our entire timeline, it suggests that it's already happened, which means that, you know what I mean, that this wouldn't be the case. So I think that if free will is really what, so I mean, I guess it could be like you said, time is linear. I guess it could be an observation of a third dimensional creature from the time that it was created to the time that it exists presently.
no. I said time isn't linear. Time time is perceived as linear as a means as a way to explain things, right? So like it's easier in layman terms to say, well, I used to be this way at X time, and now I am this way at this time,
Right, but
right?
that lends back to what we were saying in terms of um, like perception and having the free will to choose how you want to perceive the world, because in order to change the way that you perceive something or express free will, because that's what free will is the freedom to make a choice. In order to make a choice, something has to go from one thing to another thing. And so you're saying that time is an observation of the way things were at one time to the way things are now.
Right.
So in order, so I mean, and indirectly by that theory, that kind of sounds like making a choice is time traveling, which is pretty cool. But that's a whole ass other fucking, that's like a whole ass other theory, right? That every choice you make, especially when it comes to like time travel and shit. Um, but I don't want to crawl down that spider web right now. But the point is that if time isn't linear, if it's just an
Look
expression of the way that we observe our reality, then what is it?
look up I did you ever watch the show The Good Place?
I watched like the first season, and then I was like, spoilers for anybody in chat. So you have about 3 seconds to mute the stream, and you're like, "Fuck, I got a tab. Let me put down this bowl of ramen." I only watched the first episode, the first season, before and later was spoiled for me and found out that I theorized correctly. Um, that the yes is the short answer. I watched the first season and then didn't watch anymore, but I know what happens.
You should definitely watch. I mean, not just because you know what happens, but because it's a great philosophical debate. The writers of the show did great, but the biggest thing that I took away from the show um, was the Jeremy Bearimy time effect, right? And this is a thing. You should at on your at some point look into this. But the idea is that this gentleman wrote his name, Jeremy Bearimy, but he did so in such a way that it took like this insane amount of time. And it refers to existence and as how time exists. And this is kind of, again, to touch on like an earlier statement you had made about a person, or this idea like just because you're standing here today doesn't mean this is where you're going to be standing 24 hours from now, even if it was in the same physical spot, right?
Right.
And Jeremy Bearimy, the whole concept of this time thing is explained so perfect in this idea, right? um just because you might have thought this yesterday, and because you're in the same spot where you are today, even though you know a person might look at it as a linear line of time, it's not the same, right?
So you're saying
right?
just as it can be true for your physical self that even though you're in the same spot at my desk, at my computer, at the same time today does not mean that I'm in the same place in the universe that I was at this time yesterday. You're saying the same can be true for one's emotional or internal self, and that just because you feel or observe the universe a certain way now at this point in time, and you might feel the same way at a later time, doesn't mean that you're in the place.
Right. Because we're forever evolving, right? Like,
Well, if you have a
I mean, that's
growth mindset.
well, and this is why I argue that fixed mindsets are kind of crap, right? Because
Self-destructive.
everybody, unless there's a finality to your existence as a human, you're always growing whether you want to or not, right? Like, having a fixed mindset is kind of like motivation. It's a myth, right? There's no such thing as motivation. Well, no, right? There's no such thing as motivation, right? You know, a person doesn't lack motivation, they lack discipline, right? Right? Like, you could say, well, I'm not motivated to stop eating taquitos in the morning, but it's not the lack of motivation that stops you from not eating taquitos. It's the lack of discipline, right?
Well, true, but one would also argue that the constant barrage of super, super nice sets of abs on the internet was a motivation to stop eating. Like, it gave me, I perceived something in in the universe that I wanted to change about myself. So I became motivated because I discovered this thing, which obviously that's not
No,
how body image issues work. I mean, it kind of is, but the
you you didn't become motivated, you became disciplined.
in order to
It's a,
achieve, yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah. In order to
like it's
achieve what I wanted to achieve, you had to have the discipline to do what you needed to do that you weren't doing.
there are smarter people out there than me that touch on this topic. I don't necessarily, I haven't gone down this road as far as I should to make intellectual conversations about it. But
Well,
there
we'll
there
just have to
is plenty
research
of,
it and have another episode about it.
right, there is plenty of information, YouTube, Google, whatever, about motivation versus discipline and how motivation is a lie. But anyway, I digress. Um, Iron Fletcher had asked a question on here, and I wanted to touch on it
Hit
real
it.
quick. He said so free will is more freedom of perspective, right? Um, free will isn't the freedom of perspective. Free will, because perspective is choice, right? Free will gives you the ability to make that choice,
Well,
right?
I mean, and the first argument that comes to my mind is perspective isn't always a choice, but we're actually defining a reaction. And in order to continue to agree with that reaction, I mean, that's a choice. When you have a reaction, a person subconsciously or consciously, which is what we were talking about earlier in terms of recognizing a reaction and then interrupting it if you don't want it. But anyway, a person consciously or subconsciously decides to continue to allow their reaction to dictate their perspective.
Well, right. Well, I was gonna I was gonna further that comment by saying that perspective is choice of perception, right? Perceptions can evolve, right? So perspectives by definition, in line with perspectives evolving, can evolve by themselves, right?
Because
Because
there's
you're
two
not
kinds of
always
perspective. There's a perception of, or an observation. Let's use the word observation of an event.
right,
And there's an overall perspective of how you view things on a broader scale.
right,
Okay.
right. Well, I'm kind of using that synonymous with each other, perspective and the way that
And like
you
observation.
look at, right, observation.
Well, I mean, but that comes back down to what you were talking about earlier in terms of free will being a superpower. Because I have examples in my life of way I felt a way about a thing, and then I continued to feel a way about a thing. But then one day I had an observation. Hey, I feel this way about this thing, and then I had the recognition of it. Oh, hey, I feel this way about a thing. Why? And then it was, hey, I don't want to feel this way anymore. So then sometimes it was easy. I don't feel about this way anymore. And sometimes it was hard. And sometimes it swaps back and forth based on either new information or reactions that I then choose to feel the old way about, or whatever the case may be. But that's crazy to that really does kind of lend to what we were talking about earlier in terms of humor being pretty interesting, because people who make jokes that offend other people, like those people who are offended by the theory that we're talking about right now, have a choice to be that mad about it, right? Because like they don't choose to be offended by the thing that offended them. That could be their background, that could be external factors in their current day-to-day life, whatever the case may be. That could have been what offended them. But you're saying that if they theoretically, if they don't want to be offended, that they don't have to be offended, that based on the amount of offense taken, they can put in the relative work to not be offended to that thing. If a person is surface level offended because somebody made like a 9/11 joke, for example, and like that was a serious thing that we went through, and somebody was, like if they're like, oh, that's serious, you shouldn't joke about it. And then if it's not that serious for them in terms of how offended they are, then they could theoretically pretty easily make the choice to not be offended about that anymore. But if it's somebody who has like a lot of really serious history or background, like somebody who lost somebody in 9/11, for example, like they would have to put a lot more effort, at least emotionally, into making the choice to not be offended to this thing, because they have a lot more perspective toward that situation that are associated with negative feelings than a person who doesn't, for example. So they'd have to put more work into, not, for example, the more work might look like finding a different comedian to watch, right? So is that kind of what you're talking about? Like a person.
Well, right, and again, that whole thing ties it all together, right? And this is the thing that encapsulates all of it. So the work, whether and this is what's hard for people, right? It's because the work that people need to put into something, right? More, we as a species, right? Whether we go back to hunter gatherer days, to up through the agricultural age into the industrial age, et cetera, right? We as a species, we only moved as hunter gatherers when we were hungry, right? And then we would sit around and fornicate, conversate, and be lazy, right? And the absence of us being hunter gatherers has made us more lazy, right? And earlier we had talked about like the whole idea of essence and existence as far as religion went, and laws of attraction, and all this and that. So the idea, the and this is the problem and this is what makes me agnostic and have a problem with religion in general, right? Is that to give yourself over to a deity and say that I am not responsible for my life, that I am laying all of the responsibility and all of the work that I need to do to build myself up in a human at the feet of this omnipotent
Being,
being,
and the
right?
path that this being has created for me.
Right. And the pre-existing path that this being has created for me is lazy, right? It is freeing yourself of all responsibility, right? That's basically saying, I don't want to do the hard work myself, therefore I am going to lay it at the feet of this whatever being, and whenever something bad happens or something good happens, I will either denounce or give him praise, right?
Well, now that you say it out loud, and I'm, again, we're not just trying to shit on religious people, but I mean, but again, that's an observation of free will and perspective of every time a person has a situation, an event, like we called it earlier, and they choose to say, oh, that's the way it is, or thank God, for example, or even when good stuff happens, like God is good because it rained this week instead of, or that's probably a bad example. God is good because we had a good hunt. Um, this last time we went out hunting, um, really serves it gives them a disservice too, because then they're not gonna reflect on the things that they did right to make that hunt go well again. They're just gonna hope that it was the God's favor that made that hunt go well, instead of recognizing that it could have been maybe them being downwind of whatever they were hunting, or being more quiet, or having better weapons, or whatever the case may be. They're not going to look inside of themselves to do those things better and to improve if they're laying it on the feet of another being and predetermined path, is what you're saying.
Right,
And the
and it does.
opposite is true. If they're doing shitty stuff, they're not going to stop to say, "Hey, am I doing shitty stuff?" Because they're like, "Oh shit, that's just the way it is."
Well, and no, and that's exactly it. And it's laziness, right? Like people don't want people. It's easier. And again, I was tying this back to hunter gatherer days, because we don't there's no need to go out for most people. There's no need to go out and hunt anymore, right? They gather their things, and they lay their responsibilities, right? Like, I
Right.
have the free will to do this, so I will do this,
Well,
right?
and even people who do have to hunt, for the most part, we're talking, at least as far as, let's say, the modern world's concerned, people who do have to hunt to live do make the choice to live where they live, consciously make the choice to live where they have to live, to have to hunt that food. Again, we're not talking about like any sort of tribes that still exist who do have to, who do like live somewhere where they have to hunt to live. We're talking about, people who choose to live off the grid, or you know what I mean, folks, people who are part of modern society who do have to hunt, who don't make the choice to, like you said, go to the grocery store, or like you implied, go to the grocery store. Like they still even make that choice.
Yeah, like it's for me, like I had stated previously, our free will is our superpower as a species. And I think that as we move forward in time, at least as far as our society goes, um, a lot more people are waking up to the work that they need to do, and not just laying their responsibilities at the feet of whatever it is that they may or may not worship.
Well, true, and we're seeing really good examples of that. Like we just talked about earlier, we're on TikTok, and I'm seeing folks who are talking about the stuff that we're talking about having accountability and emotional intelligence, and like learning from your mistakes and growing at like, I don't know, 17, 18, 19, 20. And I'm, learning about this stuff 28, 29. So humanity, like you just said, seems to be awakening, generally speaking, to the fact that these concepts exist, and to the power of free will and what we can do. I mean, and I agree with you that free will is a superpower, only in that if perception is reality, which clearly it is, things don't exist for a person unless they perceive that thing, whatever medium it is, and theoretically. And well, no, I mean, no, that's a true blanket statement, because even if they don't observe something physically, even if they think about it, it's still observed by that person. So your existence is purely determined by the things that you choose. And not always, right? Sometimes you're impacted by another person's choices, but the perception that you have of your day to day really is your choice. And sometimes that's way harder to change in some cases, and for some things, um, than others.
Well,
Right, like PTSD is a good example. Like, if we just said what we said as a blanket statement, that's basically telling everybody PTSD, like, you have the choice to get over it, fuck off. But what we also said was that depending on what you're trying to change, there also is a relative amount of effort. Energy, that's thermodynamics, right? So if
as
you're trying to overcome something big, you have to put in big work.
well, it's not okay. I think that we look at PTSD the wrong way, and that's not me saying that PT doesn't exist, because I'm a person that suffers from PTSD. I'm not saying that PTSD is bullshit, but I think that we look at it in in the wrong way, right? Um, I we look at it as a way of, okay, well, this is how I'm reacting to something, so it's justified by this standard, right?
Well, I mean, I
Um,
don't know. I mean, because I've been in like counseling sessions and even like group therapy sessions where folks with PTSD, it was specifically the opposite of what you're talking about.
so, well, I'm gonna tie it all in, right?
Okay.
So we had talked about how society has moved away from laying its responsibility at the feet of an omnipotent being,
Or is moving,
um,
right?
is moving away. And there was this gentleman from England that wrote this book, and his name is Johann Hari. Um, and
Is it Johan or Johan?
it's Joha, and that is his first name. I call him Johann, but it might be Johann. I don't know.
Interesting.
Um, but anyway, his theory on all of this, right? And I'm going to lead it into
Sure,
like
sure.
mental
Agility.
blocks, right? Um, he has a TED talk. It's called The Real Causes of Depression, right? It's about an hour and a half long. I but it's worth listening to, outside of this. And he had stated at the beginning of the video that we now in our time are the first humans to ever be without a tribe, right? And the root cause of depression and other mental disorders is that we are not part of a tribe, right? And we are moving more into the idea that we need to reestablish those
Well,
tribes.
I mean, and that's apparent all over the place, right? I'll give you a really hot topic right now that is a beautiful, established, and growing as it should uh, example of what you're talking about, and that's the Black Lives Matter movement, right? We there's this entire group of disenfranchised folks who are banding together to make change that benefits them, that allows them, human decency that other folks are afforded. Like that's a good example. And that's a whole ass other thing in regards to like human tribalism and I agree, but also like we don't have tribes like we used to, but we do still have it, right? Like for instance, white people being racist throughout existence, that's like its own little tribe, right? If you But it's not. So are you saying that what is defining this? Are you saying, is it going to be a tribe that people choose to be a part of instead, like gamers, for example, or tribes through hobbies, instead of tribes that people can't choose to be a part of, like through their race or ethnicity or orientation or whatever the case may be?
Well, yes, but I want to delve deeper into this. So this video again, I would suggest watching it at some point. But he
Sure.
he he talks about this doctor, right? Because he went around the world and he talked to all these doctors who are professionals in their fields, right? So he talked to this doctor in London who had went to Cambodia to promote getting, bringing antidepressants, around the world to impoverished nations of people that have depression issues. So these doctors in Cambodia got all excited. He's like, I want to show you about this antidepressant. And the doctors in Cambodia, they're like, we already have antidepressants. And this doctor was surprised. He's like, well, what antidepressant? Well, like the doctors in Cambodia are like, we can already fix depression. We already have antidepressants. And the doctor
Was
from
it
England was like,
mushrooms?
no. He goes, well, what are you talking about? He goes, okay, well, they're like, so there was this guy that works in the rice field, right? And he was out one day working the rice field, and he stepped on a landmine that was there, and it blew his leg off, right? And he went home, and he was depressed. He became really depressed. He ended up getting an artificial limb. He went out back into the rice field to work, and the water from the field was getting into his artificial limb, and it was irritating the skin, and it made him worse and worse depressed. So the doctors in Cambodia, got everybody in his village together and said, how can we fix this person's depression? Well, the depression is caused by him working in a rice field. This is how he makes his living. Well, why don't we get him a cow, right? And then he can become a dairy farmer, and then he can stop working in the rice fields because he's making money being a dairy farmer, and that'll fix the problem, right? So they got him a cow. He became a dairy farmer. He stopped working in the rice fields, and this is what cured his depression, right?
Purpose?
So it the his purpose changed. The tribe came around him, and this fixed his mental disorder, right? It's this idea that that there is some chemical imbalance in our brain that bases our most of our mental
Well, but like you said earlier,
agility or
scientific
prowess.
fact is scientific fact. That's a measurable scientific fact that there are people who produce less chemicals
Well,
in the
no,
brain. There is
yes,
clinical depression. That's a real
yes,
thing.
yes, no, 100% fact. But again, if there are nine different types of depression, only two of those nine types, and in the book of what's it called?
I know what you're talking
There's
about. The brain book for psychologists.
right,
The big ass
right.
one. Yeah, I don't remember what
There
it's
there
called either.
are there are nine types of depression. Only two of those nine types of depression equate or equal to chemical imbalances inside the brain,
Okay, but
right?
that's not zero.
No, it's not zero, but the majority of these situations, right, do not have to be quelled by
Medicine.
medicinal, right. Um
And so you're
so
so by that observation, it stands to speculate that there's probably often a misdiagnosis.
well, not just misdiagnosis, but the premise that if you have things like PTSD, you should withdraw yourself from society and never put yourself in situations again, right? Because
Right.
if you're part of a
That is
tribe,
what the yeah.
right, you are quicker to maybe not completely overcome things like depression or PTSD, but it will increase your ability to handle and overcome the situations,
I see.
right?
I see.
And this is what I was getting at, right? So I'm not stating that things like depression and PTSD
Right.
are
'Cause
bull crap.
it did start to sound real pull yourself up by your bootstrappies there for a minute, and I was like, okay, well, this is clearly just some idiot. It's talking not you, but the person, the Johan guy. But like, this is
No,
some idiot who's like, oh, look how cool I am and successful I became because I just immediately decided not to. Like, that's a privilege.
right. Oh, I can't go down that road.
Right. Right. So,
um,
well, I mean, and honestly, this is a good time to start looking for a conclusion. Anyway, we're kind of getting to the wrap up stage. So, conclusion that I have. I did. Oh man. So, call back to. Damn it. All right. Well, it's gone forever. So, conclusion. Sometimes the spider webs, we can crawl back down them and they look beautiful, and sometimes they get hacked down by the gardener. So the conclusion that I've written was challenge your perspective. You're more powerful than you think.
sure.
I think, I mean, because that's what we're talking about, how our perception is our reality, and how everybody has the power to change their perception. But the thing that you're trying to overcome does have a relative strength requirement. It has an item level requirement. There's a DPS check. Um, but that is to say, I mean, some folks are going to make the choice to do the work that it takes to get over the thing they want to get over, and some folks will make the choice not to. That's not to say that some folks will feel like they can't. Whatever the case may be, it's different person to person. But I think, what would you make any changes to that? Any other suggestions to? Because I really like that. In order to change something that you don't like, you have to recognize what it is that you don't like first.
Right.
So
Um,
challenge your perspective.
I wanted. I wish I would have brought this up earlier, just to cover it. But um, looking at the whole basis of our conversation, the essence versus existence, and into existentialism, existence. Bleh. Um, I would implore everybody to. There's a book called Man's Search for Meaning. It's written by Viktor Frankl. It is a life changing book. If there's any book that I could ever recommend to anybody, that wants to.
Hey, give me 1 second. You talk to chat. I'll be right back.
What's that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry. What? Sorry. As you were saying, the book, Man's
There's
Search
a
for Purpose.
no Man's Search for Meaning. It's written by Viktor Frankl. He was born in 1905 and he died in 1997. Um,
True.
he lived through
So much.
a Nazi concentration camp experience. He founded a type of therapy called logotherapy, and he talks about free will and existence and purpose of life, and it is a life-changing book. And if you are curious about this whole thing that we've talked about today, this book is 100%. If you don't want to buy it, you like audiobooks, they have different versions of it free that you can listen to on YouTube. um like it's the biggest, like, this is a book that I've recommended to people. I know therapists that recommend this book to people.
Cool.
uh yeah. If you're it helps a lot with dealing with things like depression, like PTSD, you know things of this nature. Or if you struggle with purpose, or that you don't have a purpose, I think, if this book will change your life.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, and a couple weeks ago, I made a joke about how terrifying it would be for my NSA agent to look at the tabs that I had open. And this week is no exception. We're going to go down the list here. It is define essence, define existence, law of attraction, Nikola Tesla, three foundations, define purpose, circular economy, this is why you're depressed or anxious, types of depression, and then man's search for meaning. I think that they would make a few jumps to where my search might go after this, and then maybe call somebody. Like, this is into the one of my favorite things about the show so far is that the tabs that we have open by themselves are cause enough to stop and say, what the fuck are these guys talking about? What the hell is going on here? But yeah, so I mean, but that does lend well to what you were saying, does really lend well to the conclusion in terms of words are hard, like, challenge your perspective. And that, like, this book, it sounds like The Man's Search for Meaning is a really good tool to help a person do that. I mean, and because what we were talking about is one of the most difficult things to do in terms of challenging your perspective is recognizing an event that is, say for instance, triggering a person to begin with. Like, that finding you, because you don't know what you don't know. That's the hardest thing. You don't know what questions to ask. So it sounds like this book is one of those things to help propose some of those questions, to help a person ask themselves certain questions, or ask themselves certain questions in a certain situation that they've encountered. And I really like the second part of the conclusion, you're more powerful than you think, A, because I'm a bit of a sap and I like to motivate people and gas people up, but B, because I feel like it's more true. I feel like my life, I mean, like you said, we've been friends for a really long time, and like, even from an outside perspective, I would assume you can confirm for me, I'm in a vastly different situation now than I was when we met. Like, and in my subjective opinion, far better too. And I will say that there is definitely a correlation behind me challenging everything that I mean, and there's a difference between second guessing every thought that you have because you're an anxious critter to like actually sitting down and challenging your perspective on any given situation and like really putting yourself through the ringer. Like, why do you feel this way? Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Which is the single biggest question I've asked myself and will ask myself through the rest of my life is why? 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 And then I found that the more that I did this, the better that I got at it, and the more powerful I was to change the situations that I was in than I thought I was. So I think that,
Well,
you know, maybe some people aren't giving themselves enough credit in terms of the things that they might be able to accomplish if they believed in themselves.
well, right. Well, and that's and I was sitting here trying to think of a good conclusion statement, and I think that the basis of it all that I could say is or tell people is stop being lazy, right? I mean, and I don't mean this in a physical sense, but like embrace change, right? Embrace perspective and perceptions aren't fixed. They're forever evolving. Your choices will forever evolve. You know, to think that you have a fixed mindset is false. You're just being lazy. Not you personally,
I know
right?
what you
But
mean.
you weren't lazy. Things happened. You could have just,
Made a different
sat
choice,
down.
right?
Right. You could have chose to be lazy and not and fight change, but the inevitable is that tomorrow is going to come whether you want it to or not, right?
And an
And
effort to go ahead, and
well, I was going to say, and you have a choice, right? You could embrace tomorrow or you could try to fight it.
right.
And you me, people listening, everybody in the world, we need to stop being lazy and we need to embrace, change, whether it's, if we want to believe that they're good or bad choices. I don't personally believe that there are good, bad choices. I believe that there are just choices. Um, to not be lazy and to make, and try to be proactive in embracing, a better future.
That's a
Right. And
really long conclusion, man.
yeah, I have a hard time with writing papers too, man.
Yeah,
Like my
you're over the word limit.
yeah,
I
I
know you, man.
my professor will be like, "Hey, I want you guys to write a 1,500 page, thesis," and I'm
And you're at
like,
like 4,400 words.
"Right,
Well, and that's kind of why I wanted to invite you on the show too, and why I was really excited when you're like, "Hey, I want to talk about this." And I was like, "Okay." And I do want to address what you said in terms of we need to stop being lazy and just do the thing. To address the idea, we're not just shrugging off people's difficulties in life, and we're not just being yet another tool that says pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You can, it's you that's holding yourself back. We are saying that it's you holding yourself back, but we're saying that you can overcome that obstacle, not necessarily in making that obstacle not an obstacle in your life, but you can overcome an obstacle in it holding you down in the terms of the way that you see your life and the way that you see the world. And I can't say we, but I recognize that depending on what you're trying to overcome, there is a relative amount of work that you have to put into it to overcome it, right? If it's something big that's impacting your life, like we were talking about earlier, PTSD, there's a very high likelihood that you'll have to put in a lot of work to be able to not be as impacted or be impacted in a different way. I've seen examples just using PTSD of folks who who use things that happened to them that gave them PTSD as a way to hold themselves back, and then they turn their life around and use it as a way to propel themselves forward. So, like, it really, to come back to what we were talking about, challenge your perspective. You're more powerful than you think. I wanted to add in some of the stuff that you were
and make
talking about
healthy
with,
choices, and make healthy choices."
well, that's subjective, right? How would we personalize that?
Well, and again, this ties into to not being lazy, right? So when I say not don't
Oh,
be
here we go.
lazy,
I got you.
I'm
Choose
I'm
to
I'm
improve.
I'm not saying like, okay, well, you have PTSD. The only way you're going to get over PTSD is to just rip the band-aid off. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
What I'm saying is like, say you're agoraphobic, right? And agoraphobia are afraid to leave their house, right? So maybe make a goal for yourself, right? So the goal is to go to the corner store that's 150 feet away, right? So one day you open the door, right? And that gives
Like that's
you
progress towards your
that,
goal.
right, right. So I'm when I say don't be lazy, right? It's not to say get over yourself and walk to the store. But at some point when I say stop being lazy, it's
It's recognized that there's hard work to be done and then do the hard work.
right.
I see.
Right. The whole like with 12-step programs, right? The first rule in all of them is to admit that there's a problem,
Right.
right? So even if you use that as your basis of thinking, okay, I'm agoraphobic, this is a problem. How do I overcome this? Even thinking it is moving past where you would be if you were just sitting on the couch,
Right.
in
Right.
a pool of despair saying, FML, like whatever.
Right.
Like
Well, and
like
yeah, I like it. So I put as the second sentence to kind of encapsulate what you're saying. Choose to improve.
right.
Yeah. I mean, good.
Choose to be better.
Choose to
Yeah,
improve.
yeah, definitely.
It rolls off the tongue. So challenge your perspective. You're more powerful than you think. Choose to improve. I like it.
Right.
I
There you
like it.
go.
Well, holy shit, man. Well, I question for you, and I asked this to everybody. You might be prepared for it already, but did this fly by? Did time fly by? How was
Oh
this
yeah.
experience for you?
Oh, it was good, man.
Yeah.
Oh, time definitely flew by. I didn't even realize that we'd been on here for 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Well, and I started the stream a little bit late. That's why I let us go over. We're at about 2 hours. Yeah, it is actually about 2.5. We're at about of actual air time. We're at about 2:11. So, but of recording time, including the pre-show where we talk about World of Warcraft while we do sound checks and stuff, we're at like 2:20. Um, but all right, man. Well, is there anything else that you want to say? I know you're not like a big content creator. I'm sure, much to many of our dismay. But is there anybody you wanted to shout out? Anybody you want to recognize? Give everybody room to be themselves.
Uh, no, I don't really, outside of you and a couple other people that are content creators, I don't really. I give a shout
I
out
can
to you,
see.
man. I pay homage to your creative, uh, you know,
To my
your
choice to
creative brain.
improve.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you. You're in here week by week after we talk about it. You make an effort to be here and you contribute, and we really appreciate it. And I'm really glad that you were able to come on here and we were able to have one of our big deep talks that we have on this format. Well, and obviously the goal here is, I mean, I'm not going to just bullshit everybody. Like, clearly we're also like creating content. This is to be enjoyed by more than just us. So I appreciate you contributing to that overall goal. That means a lot to me. And it was a good episode. Time flew by for me too. We had a lot of people in chat who were really like contributing with some awesome ideas and questions. It was really cool. It did kind of die down a little bit when I made the joke that it's going to be a bunch of questions. So I hope I didn't scare anybody off with that. I really enjoyed it. So when it stopped, I was like, shit, I shouldn't have said anything. But yeah,
Questions are good though, man,
I thought
because
so too. Yeah, yeah.
questions imply growth, right?
Right.
Because if you're not asking questions, then you're not growing.
Right.
And
Because
growth,
if you have a question, it's to fill a void that's within you that you want to have filled. Right. Well,
right?
that's one of the most frustrating. Okay, so I have many examples of this in my life, but one of the most frustrating things that I see, something that like is a real big pet peeve of mine, is when a kid is barraging a parent with questions. And I get it. Sometimes kids ask really stupid questions, but then a parent snaps at their kid like, "Dude, shut up! Stop asking me all these questions." Like, whoa, like that's your whole ass fucking job, bro. If you didn't want to answer that kid's questions, you should have worn a condom.
Well, this is the complaint by like even different people in different fields, right? Like Neil deGrasse Tyson, everybody knows who Neil deGrasse Tyson is, right?
That
So
dude's a dick in
he,
real
he
life.
complains.
Have you ever met
He
him?
complains.
Sorry.
No, I've never met him in real life, but
Okay, he
I
complains.
like his content.
Yeah.
But he was complaining that we are all born scientists. We are all born natural scientists, right?
Oh,
Like
because we
children.
ask shit. Like as humans, in order
Well,
to
not
grow, we do inquire.
not just that, but children are curious, and things like, say they take an egg out of the fridge and they throw it on the floor, right? Like they're
Just to see what happens
experimenting.
with
They're
cause and effect.
experimenting. Right.
Oh.
So we as parents are killing the scientific community because we stifle our children, to not be scientists.
And to not
And
ask questions, and well, and
right.
one would say that that could have also led to where we're at as a geopolitical level too, just in the world, like because then people aren't asking questions about themselves and their surroundings and their governments and their social
Well,
structures.
and that there's a whole thing behind that, right? So that they're saying that after Gen Y, that the majority of younger people are going to be conservative because, just by pooling data, and I love statistics and numbers, that liberal folks are only having children at the rate of like 1.3 per 100,000 people in the country, while conservatives are having like 3.6 children per 100,000. So if you take our population and you do this wonky math, it shows that by the time the next generation comes up and are able to vote, the majority of them will be conservative minded.
Well, theoretically, right, we are confining an entire generation to the shackles that are their parents' choices. We do have plenty of
Right.
evidence to suggest that that's going to be the case. But if there's one thing that I've seen, it's also that the newer generations are more inquisitive, despite all motivations to destroy that creative, like we were talking about earlier, that kind of creative flame or that inquisitive flame. Like, and I think that maybe access to information is probably really helping there. But but yeah, I see where you're going, and I totally agree with you
Oh,
because just by nature versus nurture, a lot of those folks are going to end up conservative, right? But that doesn't mean, like we talked about earlier, they have to stay that way. Maybe they will challenge their perspectives, realize they're more powerful than they think they are, and then they'll choose to improve. That's a good conclusion, baby.
yeah, that's good.
What?
If you like content that bucks the system and it kind of has a message as far as music goes, I would suggest Tom McDonald. I don't know if you know who that
That
is.
sounds really familiar.
Um,
Is
he had,
that a musician that old people listen to?
no, 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 no. And if you're easily offended, it would probably Google Tom McDonald No Lives Matter.
Yeah, that's like his biggest video. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not gonna watch that right now, but I will watch that after.
Um, it's the message is real, and if you and it's easy to perceive what he is saying as being a certain way, but there are plenty of reactionary videos.
That like challenge your perspective.
It's yeah, it's going to you're gonna listen to it and be like, "W- what the fuck?" You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, but anyway, yeah, I'm gonna close on that. That's good. Um,
that's a good one to leave people off with. Is Tom
yeah.
McDonald?
Well, just because he's a bit controversial, but he is the number one selling
That's
artist
crazy.
on iTunes and Spotify right now.
But what a small world. Check this out. So this is relevant to kind of the closing up of the show. But I have a notebook where I keep all my topic ideas and working titles for them. Working titles, they're working titles because some of them just aren't like good titles, and other ones you're like maybe you don't want to say that as a title to a show. But one of them is No Lives Matters, false flagging, and social justice. So like that's crazy. I would be interested to hear that, and I might actually bring that up in that episode. I'll probably change the title considering that there's already somebody famous who's, and I don't want them to be like that mother.
Well, he's okay. So
But like,
here's the thing about Tom.
oh, are
Is
you
that,
guys on a first name basis? Are you familiar with each other?
well, yes,
Yeah.
but not on a personal level.
Sure, I'm just
Um,
joshing you.
but but he's an independent. He's never signed to any labels, right? He
Okay.
Because he doesn't want his message to be critiqued or molded, and he actually talks about this a lot in his music. Um, he doesn't even really say cuss words, man. Like, he doesn't. It's not. It's only offensive in if you perceive the message as it being
Hello, Thomas. I see that you're.
yeah, that's best rapper ever. That actually beat out Eminem when Eminem released his album.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That had to jazz him up a little.
Yeah. He's a good artist. It again, if you're weak at heart, you'd probably be offended by it. I if I and I've had to do this with people that I've introduced his music to, like watching reaction videos from different people and seeing how they're perceiving it,
Right, just to
because
get like a different
because
perspective.
right, because some people like, oh well, Richard, this is what you're basing your opinion on, and then I'll play like 20 reactionary videos saying the same thing, and they're like, oh well, I get it now.
Right. Well, but did you give them any differing opinions to avoid confirmation bias?
Well, I'm full of opinions, man. You know this, buddy.
So no is the answer to that question.
I mean, I
but
like
really,
what I
their
like.
education is not your responsibility, right? If they want
Right.
if they want a different perspective, they
No.
have the same tools that you had to get your perspective to get different perspectives.
Well,
So.
I'm of the opinion, like I said, I'm not a lazy person, and the things that I form my opinions on, the things that I choose to form my opinions on, I do the work and I figure it out myself, right?
Sure, sure.
I'm not going to lay the responsibility of my knowledge or intellect at your feet or
Right,
anybody else's
right,
feet.
and vice versa, right?
Right.
Folks, generally speaking, I mean, well, because with expectation comes disappointment. So,
Right.
and that's just through matter of context. You can ask somebody a question, but language is only so comprehensive. You might not necessarily ask a question in a way that gets you the knowledge that you're looking for. So handle it your goddamn self. Challenge your perspective and choose to improve.
Do you want a mantra to live by that'll change your life forever?
That's bold of you. That's a very bold, like sweeping assumption. But yeah, go ahead and hit me with this phrase.
I want you to tattoo it on yourself.
I won't do
It's
that.
gonna change. It's gonna change your life forever. It is reality.
Cool phrase is what I'll write
Happiness. Happiness equals reality minus expectations.
down. Reality minus.
No, happiness. Happiness equals reality minus expectations.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Expectation. Yeah, that's not that. I mean, thank you. That's a good phrase, but that's not gonna blow my mind. I'm not getting that tattooed.
No, because you have to think of it in a deeper context.
Well, but I've heard it said in other ways too, right? Like I just said, expectation, the cause of disappointment. There's an askew one that is comparison is the thief of joy. Right?
Where does disappointment come from?
Expectations.
Right.
And there's another one as it pertains to relationships, unspoken expectations or pre-built resentments. Right?
Yes.
So what you're saying, this is like, yes, it's life-changing, but it's also been said 50 different ways for 50 different, like, it's fucking awesome. But like, you know what? That comes to what we were talking about earlier with religion, and that redundancy really, like, well, and that's science too. The more examples we see of something, like, the more likely it is to be true. Happiness equals reality minus expectations is yet another iteration of, hey, like, you're only gonna be as happy as you let yourself be, and the more you expect something to happen, the more you're gonna be disappointed. Which is another law of attraction theory we'll go into, I guess, another time. We're going to have an episode too. But that's a really, you know what? I might get that tattooed on myself, only in that I think it would, I'm a nerd, and I bet you we could find really fun ways to, like, represent happiness, reality, and expectations, and then put them into, like, a little equation. You know what I mean? Like, happiness, I'll put a bow, and then reality, I'll put a sad face, and then expectations, I'll put a happy face.
What was that conversation when we were leveling in WoW, right? Where, like, you were like, "I'm glad that we're not doing mythic rating this expansion because I don't want you to expect, me to perform at a certain level."
Yeah,
right?
I do remember that. Yeah.
So the happiness was that we weren't doing this,
that we were removing expectation.
Right.
And so happiness increased because we reduced expectation.
Right.
Interesting. Well, that's a really good way to word that, man. Thank you. Well, cool. All right, we should actually wrap up because we said we were going to wrap up like 4 times. And I love it when this happens because it's a really good sign of a conversation. I have so many friends, and many of them are in chat that I end up doing this with, where, I'll say, okay, well, we're going to wrap it up, and then we end up fucking chatting for, again, another 2 hours. So, but yeah, we'll have to hang out more. You'll have to come back and play Retail WoW with us plebes so that I can show you the power of the Feral Druid.
All right, man.
But yeah, hey man,
We'll do some arena because
hell
that's
yeah,
all
dude,
I've been doing.
I would be down to do Hunter Feral Arena. That would be. But I assume you want to play your Hunter. You said you were playing your Hunter more than your Druid.
Oh yeah, that's all I'm doing now. What I'm on retail is doing
Your
is
Hunter.
playing arena.
Well,
I've been
Beast
using
Mastery
that.
Feral Druid is disgusting too. That's gross.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll stream it too. And
Yeah,
then we'll just continue gabbing like we are now. Y'all can come watch the green room behind the scenes continuation of our conversation, because this is the shit that we talk about when we're playing WoW all the time. So,
except it's a bit less PC. So
yeah. Well, I mean, and I appreciate the willingness to appeal to a broader audience. It makes sense considering that the medium that we're using,
well,
and that is a beautiful example of challenging your perspective and not necessarily choosing to improve, but choosing to differ, right?
I wanted to preface, like, if in case we do this and people actually come in
You do.
and yeah, actually come in. I just want to preface that it's not hard to be chill, but sometimes we're just not. So
True. All right, man. Well, it was good talking to you, and I will catch you again here in the future.
all right, bro.
All right, dude. Have a good one. Pow.
Okay.
Let's disconnect that. Well, everybody, that was a fucking enlightening show, wasn't it? My brain's both heavier and lighter at the same time. An hour and 38 minutes in. We're 2.5 hours. These are getting shorter and shorter and easier to edit. And Maju, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm glad that you found the topic interesting. It's good to see you. It's really awesome how many members of the Karma crew pop over to say hello. I really enjoy being a part of that community, so it's cool to see y'all in here too. Just caught the end. Hey, that's all right. Eventually, I'll put all these on YouTube. I'm like 3 episodes behind, including this one, to get on YouTube. So that comes back to what I was talking to Richard about earlier. How about sometimes the week just flies by and I didn't get enough stuff done, right? Like I didn't get enough stuff done. But we'll see. They'll get up when they get up. So to kind of conclude, today's episode was talking about the essence of a person's being and their purpose and their reality, their existence. The conclusion that we're walking away with today is challenge your perspectives. You're more powerful than you think, and choose to improve. And it doesn't matter if it's the perspective that you have on X or Y, but ask yourself, why do I have this? Why is this here? Does this serve me? Does this meet the parameters that I want my things to meet? Hold on, plane. After you, sir. Anywho, I really like the idea of asking yourself questions. And to that, I have a question. Hey, Bo, what's next week's episode about? Well, let me tell you. Next week, we're going to be having a very fun conversation with a very, very fun person, Dash, from The Dice That Bind Us, a very, very fun D&D show / podcast that I love to watch. Comes out every Wednesday. Very fun characters. Will be joining me on next week's episode, and we are going to be talking about filling the world with art in an art-filled world. We're going to talk about trying to express yourself in creative means at the same time everyone else is. And in my opinion, just to give you all a little bit of teaser, I think it's beautiful. I think it's really awesome that we're seeing really new and fun ways for people to express who they are. And I'm excited to see what Dash thinks about it. So I hope y'all will join us next week. It will be a really good time. As a reminder, start at 11 a.m. Mountain. We used to be 9 o'clock Mountain, but that sucked. I'm not even going to be around the bush. I don't want to. that sucked. And then usually I would end up getting off the show and just taking a nap anyway, right? It completely defeated the purpose. But big thanks to all of you who joined us. Again, Maju, good to see you there at the end. Otter, thank you for stopping by and dropping that huge sub. Almost 2 years you've been subbed. And that's a streak, too. That means even when I'm not here, you just keep it going, and I appreciate you a lot. So thank you for being here. Iron Fletcher, big part of the show. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for the emote spam. And everybody else who played a big part. Nix, Sam was here for a bit. Anybody else I might have missed because of my stony baloney brain, just know I appreciate you, even if I can't remember your name. Every time I see the chat move, I just get a little bit of happiness inside. Someone's here. So I guess I bid you adieu. We did kind of have this like tradition going of just ending the stream in the middle of talking. So maybe we'll keep doing that. But I don't know, like we could probably like get a producer to make like an outro or maybe some sort of video